For every city you burn, I'm gonna build one high.
Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashtarothi. My camera's off by a little bit. Hold on. Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I'm Ashtarothi, the voice of New Eden, and this is January 10th, YC127. This is the Eve Universe Show. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How's it going, guys? Good to see you. Uh-oh, my puppy's going to mess with the cat. That's going to be great. Oh, it has been a week, guys. It's been a pretty quiet week in Eve. So we haven't had that much to talk about. It is the first week of January for Eve, and I would have liked to have heard more about what's coming, but we didn't. But we did get a couple of things. So today, we've kind of got a theme of the economy, sort of. We've got the monthly economic report for Eve Online, and then we will be looking at the changes for Season 2 that's coming to Eve Galaxy Conquest, and continuing on with Eve Frontier White Paper after that. So strap on, guys. It's going to be a good time. Make sure to like the stream and share it with a friend. Let me see. How's you guys doing? How's you guys doing? I could be playing Marvel Rivals right now, but instead I'm here with you guys because I love you. All right. Man, I really don't have much on my mind, much to say about things at the moment. Is there anything new or anything I'm not paying attention to? I should check Reddit real quick. I feel like I'm a bit tired. I'm trying to keep up with everything. Let's see. Nothing more here, is there? How's your guys' week? Is there anything this weekend that's worth paying attention to? No, just mostly people just still mad at Eve because of well, we'll talk about it during the monthly economic report. We've definitely got something to chat about when it comes to that. Mineral prices are pretty excited. Nope, just people being grumpy mostly. Pretty quiet week. Like the stream. All right. Let's go ahead and jump into the monthly economic report. Let me make sure I have it fitted. There we go. So this is the monthly economic report for December 2024. Oh, I should have put this in the gosh darn notes. Hold on. Let me fix this. I'm bad. Oh, especially since we still have timestamps from the previous one. I'm so bad at this. There we go. Updated. Cool. All right. Let's jump into the monthly economic report. Also, my coat warm now. You'd think that after all these years I'd figure out how to do this, but in the meantime, let's jump into the monthly economic report. Economic Capsuleers, the monthly economic report for December 2024 is now available. MER changes. There was a request that we took a look into the way import and exports work. Import and exports work by looking at ship movements between regions. They do not count the ship or module ammo fitted to the ship. Wait. Ship moving, they don't count the ship or module ammo fitted to the ship or implants fitted to the character. They do count all the items in the cargo. Ship maintenance bay or any other specialty bays. This include assembled ships, modules fitted to those assembled ships, etc. We'd like to revise it so that only non-assembled items are counted in imports and exports. However, we can't without changes to the way we log ship movement events, which is being reviewed with the EVE development team. That's weird. Like, wait, so if I carry everything in a giant jump freighter, that jump freighter also moved from one place to another. I guess it's not the cargo, but if the jump freighter then doesn't return to the original place, that's still movement of value, I would argue. But either way, whatever. Economic summary. Production has stabilized in December after significant increase in November. Now, that line is something that we're going to get back to. Significant increase in November for production. Mining value has continued its upward trajectory. A large part of this is increased ice mining, driven by volatile ice storms from Winter Nexus Yule Festival event. Commodities have seen a spike in overseer personal effects being sold to NPC buy orders, again from the Winter Nexus Yule event. Okay, so I guess we just ripped the Band-Aid off, right? Like, first of all, actually, no, that's later. So this top bar here is production, right? Yeah. So this bar down here that swoops up because people were trying to use it for intel, I believe, like with Goon's move. Oh, well, that's fair. So September, October, November, December. So we can see that like November and December was this significant increase in both production, and while they are correct, it's stabilized, but it is absolutely stabilized at a higher point than it has been since 2019. Right? We can see production value is 5.5 trillion, which is higher than it's been in the entirety of this this post. We'd have to look before then to see if there's anything earlier. We can also see that a large amount of this production increase, if you can see at the very corner here, a large amount of this production increase is actually from like a minor drop in high sec, but it's being eaten up by red. What is red? Red is nullsec? Yeah, being eaten up by nullsec. So we can see that like this is a percentage, right? So this doesn't necessarily mean that there's less production being done in high sec, but what it means is that there's so much production being done in nullsec now, starting a month or two ago, that it has started to crowd out the other places, right? Other than wormholes, which didn't see that big of a decrease. So that's something to keep in mind, is that like production is at a 5-year high, and predominantly that increase is in null security space. There is an increase in mining, but it was just a recovery from a trough. And they also suggested that a chunk of the mining is due to ice mining, because it doesn't really determine the difference between those in this video, or in this image. It also means, this also, by the way, points out that this increase in mining production, first of all, we see a big increase, or well, it did start to increase. I think this is wormhole space, right? Yeah, wormhole space mining went up and then dipped back down as nullsec takes over a little bit more. I think that a lot of this, like a lot of the buffs that were put into the Equinox changes potentially influence this, but also like a big part of all of this is going to be that giant fucking production spike, right? Somebody's got to, if there's things being produced, then there has to be rocks being mined. So summary by region. We can look at Pochvin versus last month. 2.96 trillion. Oops. In destruction. 2.96 trillion in destruction. Down to 1.98. So destruction is way down. Come on. Mining value. 0.2 to 0.29. So mining's a little bit up. Actually, almost 50% up, technically. 44 trillion versus 34 trillion. So whatever this metric is. Exports went down. Anything else that's worth noting? That's probably fine. Asteroid ore mined over time, we're seeing that it is relatively stable. We can see that throughout December, it stayed pretty stable during the winter event. We do see a little bit of a drop off in the second half of November, but it's been pretty stable, and it's been on par with basically the entirety of the year. Asteroid mined by region. This is always good. Let's go look at what it was before. It was, whoa, Amencia. Who's in Amencia now? Amencia went from 5th place to 1st place, jumping from 2.8 trillion or billion to 3.7. Is that Goons? Yeah, okay. Makes sense. Yep, Goons are starting to get to work. We can definitely see the trade over. It went from so we have Metropolis, Forge, Sync Liaison. So I imagine that this is likely possible. Like Metropolis, Forge, Sync Liaison, these are all high-sec areas. We can even see them in this one. Wait, sorry, we can see them in this one. Metropolis, Forge, Sync Liaison. Those are the three big. Metropolis is Heck, I think. The Forge is, of course, Jita, and Sync Liaison is Dodixie. So those three are always going to be pretty high when it comes to high-sec mining. But what we're seeing here is, like, last month in November, they were doing the move. They were doing other stuff. They were busy. They weren't mining nearly as much. And then we see this giant spike in mining here. So if we go look back in here, we can see this dip and then spike up. This feels like it's very likely the Goon moving, right? Like, because like during this time, they weren't doing very much mining. We can tell because this month's the different mining locations that they would be at are all below even high sec. And then as they got into their new position, we're seeing them build a shit ton more and mine a shit ton more. And this is really important because, like, so with that kind of move, they're not going to move everything. First of all, they didn't completely move out of 1DQ. They still kept their keep star there. And so there's a lot of people that just left their stuff there, either to sell to the people that live there or just to keep it there for later. You know, with these kinds of move ops, you move the stuff that you're going to use right away. But a lot of times people just start producing new stuff where they end up. So what we're seeing is they're starting to rebuild their coffers. So we're seeing an immense amount of mining and an immense amount of production. Let's keep that in mind when we read about all of when we think about all of the complaining that Nullsec has been doing about their mining recently. We see good numbers in their mining. However, and this is what's noteworthy, there's a difference between this spike and this change as well as this lack of change, right? Because here's the thing. This chart is ore mined over time. And we can see a little bit, like, here's the dip and then the bring it back up halfway through November. So there's that kind of, we're not mining because we're moving world, and it comes back up. But if you notice, like, this has been relatively stable, whereas this has not been. Like, this is a much bigger change. This is a big change. So this very well seems to imply that a lot of this has to do with the fact that it's not that there's more rocks being mined, but the mineral value of those rocks are going up. And that's because we're mining about as much as we used to, but we're producing so much more, right? We went from, we gained almost 1 trillion ISK worth of production in a month or two. And so that's going to have an increase in the mineral cost, but not necessarily an increase in the rock value or the rock M3 amount, which is what we're kind of seeing here, right? Asteroid mined over time by region, Imensia, Veil of the Silent, Impasse, Metropolis. Yep, same thing as before. Gas mined over time remains, like we can see when they killed off the need for, when they added net resonators into the game, they kind of killed off the need for low-sec gas nearly as much. So we see this big drop off in low-sec gas. Everything else has been relatively stable. We can kind of track this drop to this drop, and everything else has kind of been exactly the same. So gas mining has been relatively stable, if a little bit of an increase in November, but mostly just stable. Gas mined by region, once again, Veil of the Silent, Iridia, up there towards the top. Actually, Iridia is interesting. I think that just has more to do with the gas that's there than anything. Ice mined over time. Okay, well, here we go. We see this giant spike in ice mined in December with this big increase in low sec, an increase in high sec, and an increase, but less of an increase in null sec. This is 100% the ice mining event. So bear that in mind. Obviously, with the Christmas event, low sec ice mining was the most valuable and was fairly protected. So we're seeing an increase, a fairly healthy amount of low sec ice mining, with high sec ice mining being very popular because it was the safest, and null sec not being as popular because, like, if you're wanting to do the most valuable, you're going to do low sec. If you want to do the safest, you're doing high sec. Occasionally, there was reasons to do it in null sec, but not for a lot of people. Ice volume mined over time. The Forge is number one. That's that big high sec boost, mostly. The Metropolis, Evershore Domain. Moon materials by source. We're seeing that the R8s continue to be eaten up. R16s continue to be eaten up. R32s remain stable. R4s are still about halfway produced by Metanoxes, and we still see basically R64 is 100% mined. So not a lot of change in the composition of what gets mined by how with moon minerals. Everything's kind of flat. But we see that Veil of the Silent is number one. Was that the last time too? Yeah, Veil of Silent, Fountain, Syndicate. Veil of Silent, Fountain, Syndicate. So yeah, no real movement in moon mining. It went up a little bit in value, but that just can be like how the moons land throughout the month. Imports and exports. Delve being the biggest export, right? Yeah. And of course, the Forge being one of the biggest imports, but Imensia there. Here we saw Delve was again one of the biggest exports. So this was, excuse me, like month 2 of the move. And Imensia was a huge export or import, and Impasse and Tenerifis. So we're again seeing a lot of the impacts of the move. Is it possible that the gas bump in November might be an increase in demand with people replacing their stuff after the Halloween event? It could be. I think that a lot of it, the gas bump. Oh, right here in November. I think that has to do directly with the difference in production. Once again, we see that trough during the move and then a spike back up. Gas gets used in capital ships still, and battleships, and drugs, and also the vast majority of the mining for gas is in wormholes. So I don't know. I don't know if that's necessarily true. There's no gas for battleships anymore, or there's no gas for battleships? I thought they still... Is it just capitals now? Okay. Right. So this is... I feel like this would be almost like a T3 gas mining, right? Because it's in the gas bump is mostly in wormhole space. So I think uh, if anything, I think it probably has to do with like people being done with the Halloween event, so getting back to their normal money making efforts more than just like them trying to replace their Halloween stuff, because none of the stuff that's used in the Halloween event costs gas. Besides the drugs, obviously, but I mean, like, people are using the event drugs. The commodity market is 298. Wait, hold on. 61.9 trillion, where last month it was 52 trillion. So that's what, 10 trillion increase thanks to the thanks to the Christmas event. Which, by the way, I've said this before. I said it during the Christmas event, that the Christmas event is traditionally one of the most lucrative events in the year. I think that we can now say that that's probably not true anymore. I think that they've significantly tuned down the reward during the Christmas event, which is sort of disappointing. But yeah, let me know if you agree. Bounties are wow. So once again, we can really see them not doing much in November, right? Because in November we see bounties of 47 trillion, and in December we see bounty prizes of 60 trillion. That is a big bump. That's 12 trillion increase in 1 month. Hold on, now I gotta check. Now I've got to check. Hold on. There's usually a monthly economic report like tag that lets you find the rest of them. I think they stopped doing it though. News archives. 2024 November. October monthly economic report. Yeah, 45 trillion. Wow. Yeah, they increased bounties in late November because people were bitching because of the rats warping in and shit. Jesus, that is a fucking difference. Man, every single time I look into the things that nullsec complain about, I'm like, golly, why are you complaining? Hold on, I gotta keep going down this rabbit hole for a second. Just give me a second. What was it the month before? 12 trillion increase in bounties is absolutely crazy. Holy shit, yeah. No, it's basically, it is very close to double the bounties. You know what? People are they're complaining because it works. Man, now I feel like maybe the mineral price index is going up because the liquid ISK flowing in is too high. That's crazy. Oh, no, sorry. It was 43 trillion. So it was about the same. 43 trillion to 45 trillion to 60 trillion. That's crazy. Is that the event, though? Is that the event? Wave Silver Spoon. I mean, some of that could be the event. I don't think so, though. The bounties on the event wasn't like... No. That's got to be more ratting, right? Hold on, let's find out. Main bank, ESS auto bank payment. That's the way I check to see if it's nullsec ratting, right? Because if it's ESS, if it's nullsec ratting, then we should see a corresponding bump to the ESS main bank auto payment. So let's go look. We have ESS auto bank payment, third line, 25 to 29. So that's still, what, 20%, right? 20% increase in ratting? I guess that's wait, hold on. That tracks. Hold on. Where was that update? Where was that update? Revenant update? No. Shape the Chaos? Nope. Was it in Revenant? Man. When did that happen? Check patch notes. Well, I didn't want to have to dig through a bunch of patch notes, but yeah. No, not this one. Can I just look up 20%? Here we go. Increased bounties on several NPCs found primarily in nullsec anomalies by 30 to 40%. This results in the following total average bounty increase for these popular nullsec anomalies. Yeah, that's like 30%. That's okay. That's wild. All right. So, moving on. We have Triglavian invasions at 6.2 trillion. Whoa, hold on. Triglavian invasions, 12 trillion. Whoa. Triglavian invasions, 20 trillion. So it goes from 20 trillion to 12 trillion to 6 trillion for Triglavian invasions. That's pretty wild. Obviously they made a lot of changes to the invasions or the Pochvin changes. This really seems like they brought it in line, especially since like Sancho's incursions have been, oh, I guess it was above last month too, with 20 to 17. Even Sancho incursions is down by 15%, I think. Sancho's incursions 16. Well, I mean, Sancho's incursions is within normal range, but Triglavian invasions is down to a lower number than I've seen since invasions were since Pochvin was formed. House of Records, Ministry of Internal Order. So the home fronts remain pretty stable. Oop. We have House of Records at 2.2, then 1.7. Yeah, they're pretty stable. Project Discovery rewards at 1 trillion. Stable. Yeah. From here, we can see like this giant. Well, okay. Hold on. This big spike for Overseer personal effects. This is this last winter event. But what's extremely telling is this spike right before it. This is the Halloween event, which is pretty crazy because, like, okay, if you look here, this is why I know that something went horribly wrong this Halloween, right? Because this Christmas event, because we have the Christmas event, we have the Christmas event, and we have the Christmas event, and we have the Halloween event, and kind of the sort of Halloween event over here. But like this year, the Halloween event was so much more than the Christmas event. And I think that that's just because it was literally just worth more. We do see that Triglavian data has gone down. That's that loss in Pochvan, a lot of it. And road drone analysis beacons are also a little bit down. Bounty encrypted bonds are up. That's from all of the extra ratting. We can see, wow, look at that change in bounties. Look at that change in bounties. Look at this. Look at, Jesus fucking Christ. This is how much Null controls the narrative, okay? So when Equinox comes out, Equinox is what? June, July, April, somewhere in there? When Equinox comes out, we don't see like when they change the thing so the rats warp in instead and they change all of the sites and everything, we don't see a drop in bounty prizes, right? You don't see them being hurt by those changes. If anything, it goes up a little bit. But God, they complained about it and they get a 30% bump. That's fucking wild, isn't it? They go from 2 trillion, sorry, 50% bump. 50% bump almost. Because it goes from 2 trillion to 3 trillion. That is crazy. And you know, if CCP tries to fix that, they're going to be like so mad because in their world, they're the victims, right? They had it all taken away from them. And the fact that CCP corrected it confirms in their head that they were wronged. But this chart seems to show that they weren't. Look at the Triglavian invasions. Didn't some of the Poshram sites stop giving straight ISK and sellable loot instead? Yes, that is true. That's actually a really good point. But and that could be part of this spike in the commodity market. But you got to remember, like, we also have the event commodities. So we would see a big, we would like to see a big corresponding increase in the commodity market. But we don't seem to see that in comparison to just the normal bumps from being the event, right? But these bounty prizes, that's almost 100% nullsec increase. I'm pretty sure of it. Maybe I should start complaining about Fact War LP payouts. Look, faction warfare need to have a separate LP store just for doing invasion stuff or insurgency stuff. That's all I know. All right. Service fees, breakdown, money supply. So we can see things actually kind of leveled out. Things leveled out the last couple of months. Overall, I think that a lot of that comes from the fact that there's a combination of converting materials into stuff and an increase in the value of those materials that may lead to this kind of like flatlining. Especially, this is Liquidisk, right? Yeah, this is Liquidisk. So that's weird. That's really weird, right? You would think that this massive increase in bounty prizes would also equate to a massive increase in wealth, but it doesn't. Bounties do increase content too, though? Well, yeah. Ratters become targets to hunters if that helps any. No, you're absolutely correct. Like, ratting is like having people out in space doing things is good. I'm not suggesting otherwise, for sure. Counterinsurgency players should be getting Mortis Legion standing LP. Counterinsurgency players should be getting Upwell LP, which are used to buy Orb blueprint copies, Mortis Legion blueprint copies, and some other stuff. I don't know, man. There are 3 types of lies: lies, damned lies, and statistics. Velocity of ISK. So again, we're seeing like the amount of ISK, the amount of wealth that people have, is actually pretty stable the last month or two. However, the velocity of ISK is up. So this tells me that, like, A, people are losing some stuff, potentially. Where's our destruction graph? I mean, destruction is towards a higher end at the moment, but still, with a lot of the destruction being in low sec. I would think that, like, if it's flat, but there's a lot of ISK coming in through the faucet, then that means that there's got to be also a lot of ISK going out through the sink. Oh, hey, let's look at this. Let's see. Anything stand out here? Transaction tasks at 25 trillion. That's the same. LP is 17 trillion. That's the same. Brokers free, 13 trillion. That's the same. Skill points, that's the same. Manufacturing is up by about 5%. Wait. Blueprint market goes from 7 trillion to 9 trillion. That's actually a really decent ISK sink, because when you buy a blueprint from the market, that money goes away. Oh yeah, with Plex, it could be people. No, ISK doesn't get taken out of the economy by Plex. ISK doesn't get taken because, like, you're buying the Plex from another. The ISK goes from one player to another. The ISK is not taken out of the system because of Plex. But an extra 2 trillion ISK worth of blueprints being bought because of all these new production, right? That I think is going to be a big thing. Yeah. You'd see that in transaction fees. That's correct. So yeah, I think a lot of that, this 2 trillion out of blueprints is probably worth noting. 4 trillion skills are actually down a little bit. Hypernet relay is 7. Oh, asset safety recovery. Let's see how that worked. Yeah, an extra trillion goes away thanks to asset safety recovery as well. So people pulling stuff out of asset safety. Another big thing that happens 1 month after a move, as people asset safety their stuff to low sec and then pull it out or whatever. Yeah. So we're seeing there's definitely some ways that the money is leaving the system, and it's mostly out of, like, just straight up sinks. Mostly production related. That's very interesting. So that's how there's velocity of ISK can go up, but the amount of ISK and the ratting can go up, but the total number of ISK is going down, or is flat. ISK is coming in, ISK is being traded, and then ISK is going away. How many goons have just satisfied their old stuff? Safety their old stuff into the new home. It's not safety their stuff into the new home, but they safety their stuff to this one low sec system, and then they do something else with it later. But yeah, basically. I don't know if it's necessarily the best way to get it to your new home, but it is the best way to get it out of 1DQ for the purposes of, say, selling it in JITA or in the asset safety system. In addition to that, though, you got to remember that they invaded another area, and all that stuff gets blown up, and all that stuff goes into asset safety. So it's also the people being invaded by the goons that are having to pull their stuff out of asset safety, potentially. All right, guys, let's get to the big one. Let's get to the one that everyone's talking about. Mineral price index, baby! To the moon! All right. What the hell is happening here? Mineral price index is literally off the chart. Okay, so here, just first of all, I want to point out that all of these other charts that we've been looking at is like a 2019 to 2025 chart, or like this is like a 22 to 25 chart. So you got to keep track of like the years. This is from 2017 to 2025. This one goes all the way back to 2024. So this is, 2004. So this is the entire economy of ETH throughout the entire history of the EVE Online, right? What does that mean? That means that mineral prices are right now higher than they have ever been in the entire history of EVE Online. That's pretty wild. Now, one of the comparatives, though, is like we can see Gateway. Well, let's look at, so Invasion Chapter 2. Because by Invasion Chapter 2, we start to see, this is like the beginning of scarcity, right? So in fact, we can even mark Invasion as being kind of close to the beginning of scarcity. So this big spike in the mineral price index happens right about the time that they do the mineral DNA change during scarcity, rearranging where minerals can be found, and Isogen explodes in value, right? That happens then. And then we see it starts to drop off. Remember, this is still during scarcity, right? That we see this drop off. And then right about, not uprising, but actually, what's weird is when scarcity ends, which is this, about this point here, it's basically done nothing but go up in the mineral price index since scarcity ended, right? But here's the thing I think is really important to note when it comes to this spike versus this spike. Because a lot of people are saying that, like, oh, this is clear that it's failed, all this other stuff like this. Okay, I have an alternative theory. Part of my theory is the fact that, like, if you see this spike, this mineral spike index happens at the same time as the secondary producer index troughs. And the primary producer index troughs shortly thereafter. Whereas when it comes to right now, the secondary producer, the primary producer is going up a little bit, but the secondary and the, what is C? Consumer price index remains flat, right? So this is something that's really interesting to know. This could mean that production is less valuable right now, because like with mineral prices going up, but the actual value of the stuff you produce with minerals not going up to the same rate, that is narrowing your margins. What this really shows is that right now, economically speaking, the major opportunity is in mining and minerals, right? So there's a couple things that people have pointed out when it comes to what's going on here. First of all, the economic indice for the mineral price index is based exclusively on minerals that are traded largely in JITA, right? So rocks that are traded, which remember, things being imported and exported in and out of nullsec are often done in compressed NOC. Didn't they just make planetary industry way more accessible? They did. In several different ways over the last year. But since people trade rocks more often, that doesn't get reflected in this index. Likewise, anything that's traded by contract or like internal systems within a corporation or an alliance, none of that is tracked by this, right? This is just being sold on the open market. So given the fact that a lot of this extra mining that's happening right now is in nullsec, they're likely not taking that to highsec. So given the fact that a lot of material used to, so before Equinox, things had to get mined in highsec and lowsec and then sold usually in JITA and then exported to nullsec, right? But now nullsec can mine a lot of the stuff that they needed that would require highsec and lowsec in nullsec. So that kind of takes a lot of the nullsec buyers out of that market. because they're more likely to try to source it locally, which means that the only people that are really trading in the high-sec stuff are the people remaining. That can cause big market fluctuations. You combine that with the fact that that means that nullsec is less likely to sell their ore in high-sec, and the fact that Mexilong and Pyrite is in an extreme shortage right now because of the fact that nobody mines R4 moons. Well, much fewer people are mining R4 moons than used to. We're seeing this big crunch, especially on lower end minerals, and that's being seen as this big spike in the mineral price index. Yeah, I mean, Null is likely building their walled garden again, or they're trying to. Make us pay for it. So we can see the consumer price index is relatively flat with nothing overly exciting happening. Tech One modules have gone up in value. Again, this implies to me a pretty significant. This is a symptom of that industry change, right? Because if you're building a bunch of ships, you need more than just ships. You also need modules, right? Now, Tech 2 modules often require Tech 1 modules to build. But we see that the Tech 1 modules haven't gone up, or Tech 2 modules haven't gone up quite as much in price as Tech 2 modules. Why? Well, people want to build Tech 2 modules. In order to build a Tech 2 module, you have to build a Tech 1 module. However, building the Tech 1 module, while it's very simple, often is seen as being beneath the Tech 2 production pipeline, right? With everything going on in the Tech 2 production pipeline, the building of the Tech 1 module is often a trivial matter, and often they'll just buy the Tech 1 module because why would I need to have two industrial processes in order to do this? So I think that what we're seeing is a lot of people are trying to build Tech 2 modules, which means there's this sudden demand on Tech 1. It's because nobody's fitting Tech 1 modules on their ship, not in mass. But they're buying Tech 1 modules in mass in order to produce Tech 2 modules for all these new ships that they're building. That's my guess. All right, mineral price index. Here's the interesting thing here. We can see that it's almost evenly split between low-end minerals and high-end minerals. So this is an increase in demand across the board, which again indicates to me that this is mostly focused around that immense increase in production, right? With so many people trying to produce so much stuff, suddenly there's a big crunch on those minerals. Primary producer index. We see a big blue in raw moon materials and asteroids and commodity and advanced moon material. So again, people are trading around those rocks. People are trading around those resources more than anything else. If you notice, across the board, we're not seeing anything that's like the finished product is going up in price, but everything involving the production process right now is spiking in price. Again, making production margins much narrower and making the supplying of production far more lucrative this month. Secondary producer. Salvage materials going up. That's actually pretty important because we had a pretty big drop in salvage materials over the course of having several events that focused on salvaging, but perhaps it's going to start recovering now. Again, people with new ships need to build new rigs. Capital component parts also slightly up. And accessories are down. I think that's the drop in Plex prices, right? Plex and again, it's not a drop in Plex as much as like Plex went crazy and then it fell off. But that would also be last month too. Yeah. Maybe. I'm not 100% sure. I never know what's going on with accessories. I think that's Plex, but I'm not 100% sure. Ship and module prices. So here's another good example, right? If we look all the way back to 2018, so scarcity, first of all, during scarcity, the ship prices went up, right? But modules didn't. But right now, modules and ship prices are going up. But if we look, again, for all of those doomsayers, ship prices are still not as high as it was during scarcity. Sure, it's higher than it was pre-scarcity, but if you remember, pre-scarcity, the economy was unhealthy as like if you're comparing prices to what it was pre-scarcity, then you're thinking about this almost the wrong way, because like that wasn't healthy either. So it needs to be somewhere in between. Now, I have a kind of controversial argument about all this, which is that like if scarcity was designed to bring the numbers back in line, right? And to make the bring the economy back in line. And it somewhat did that. Like it bled a lot of the reserves and slowed down a lot of stuff. Well, with scarcity now over, the numbers haven't fully recovered, and in a lot of ways are looking the same way as it was during scarcity, or at least closer to what they were during scarcity than before. I would argue that this is a good thing. This is the system working. This means that what was intended to be done is doing it, right? Because like the entire point of this wasn't to be like, okay, scarcity is this period of time in which there's nothing, and then we're just going to go back to the reign of the Rockwall again. That was never the point. The whole point was to begin to ratchet things back up to create this dynamic universe and economy on built off of what they did before that remained healthy. So the fact that we're not seeing numbers go crazy out of control again means that so far this process is arguably working. You know, if you think that things are bad right now, go mine some. And it's apparently very valuable comparatively. Or rat, because ratting is now great too. Whatever. People are going to complain. Wormhole trade summary. We have 7.6 and 4.1, 8 and 4.1. So wormholes continue to be fine. 1.6 and 1.0. So a drop off, or no, sorry, an increase in class 4. That's some pretty big reductions in, hold on, in gas. 0.2, 0.2, 0.3, 0.3. Okay, well, 50% increase in exported. Was that imported? I don't actually understand this chart, I don't think. I guess that's imported? It is working. I'm glad that you're saying that. People need to adapt. If you don't like high ship prices, go do some mining and contribute to the economy. Cheers. The other thing is, okay, here's the other thing. The ship prices aren't that high. The ship prices aren't that high. The same fucking thing happened during scarcity, right? CCP actually reduced the complexity and costs in building Tech 1 ships, and people freaked out because ships prices were too high. Here's the problem, okay? And this is the God honest truth. High tier, high level, advanced players use newer players and low tier stuff as an excuse, even when it is completely out of touch with reality, right? This is very much a think of the new bros situation, okay? They're thinking about themselves. They don't think about the fact that the average new bro can now make money better than they've ever been able to do before by just mining basic high-sec stuff in their venture or whatever. Yeah, it's not that much money. It's not that much compared to your Rockwall mining or whatever, but guess what? It's better than it has ever been to mine in a venture in high-sec right now. Okay, like they don't think about the fact that, like, or often when they talk about prices changing, they're looking at things like capitals, but they pretend like they're looking at things like caracals. They're not. Okay, they're not. And largest battles per solar system, pretty map, cool. It's a net, so negative numbers would mean more imports, I think. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't get the wormhole thing. That's fine. Wormholes are weird. But yeah, so if the new bro can make lots of money, then the established can make 500 times as much. Well, yes and no. The problem is that, like, if you notice, all of the things that they've complained about are things that apply to high-end players using advanced equipment or big multi-box situations, right? Things like complaining about the rock sizes. I saw a post the other day that was showing off how much minerals are in one of the mining sites in nullsec, and the estimate showed 500 million ISK. And they're bitching about this. Now remember, these sites respawn. They respawn in, I think, an hour now, right? So if you're mining these sites, you're making up to 500 million ISK an hour mining. And now that you're doing it, now that you have the different upgrades that you can have, you're mining whatever type of mineral you choose to be mining, if you're, depending on how your guys set up your space, right? So what are you complaining about? Yes, if you want to go with like 10 different people and mine them, you're going to mine through them too fast. You should probably spread out. You know what else will go too fast? If you put 5 people in the same anomaly, you're going to carve through it pretty quickly, and you're not going to make as much money. But if you just sit there and grind through it solo, which I honestly believe a lot of these mining sites are designed to be mined solo, or like a very small group, then guess what? You're going to be fine. You want to talk about, oh, you have to target a whole bunch of rocks nowadays? Congratulations. You have to actually play the game that you're multi-boxing. Even if you have to change your target. Okay, look, let's put it this way. If I have 5 mining vessels, and let's say each rock is destroyed by 1 cycle of 1 strip miner, okay? That means I have to hit F10 or F1 10 times a minute. 10 actions per minute. Oh my God, whatever will I do? Like, come on, guys, adapt. We can do this. And that's my thoughts on the economy. Oh, man. Like, yeah, I don't know. I think that nullsec complaining about things, I guess, at least they care. I don't know what else to say. What's your thoughts about the economy? Am I totally wrong? How did I miss this? What did I miss? What did I get wrong? Am I speaking truth to power? I will leave you with this final hint, which is during scarcity, throughout all of scarcity, I would say something, which is there are 2 types of people during scarcity. There are the people loudly bitching about the changes and the people quietly profiting from it. Look at the kind of people that are not bitching about the changes recently. Those are the ones that have their head down and they're making fucking bank. And we'll hear about it months from now, right? People will admit to it or whatever. But like, that's just how this works. Why would somebody who's making bank out of the situation bitch about things? Bitching, I hate to put it this way, but bitching is for the losers, right? Like if you're losing out on the changes, then it behooves you to bitch about it and hope for change. Yeah, it's a contradiction of the player-run economy. Do players want CCP to run the economy or players? Exactly. If it's so true. Like, do we want a player-built economy? Then players get to fix these kinds of problems. Sorry. I'm sorry. That's just how it works. Maybe in like a year or 2, the bitching seems to work. I mean, sadly, that's true. Sadly, that's true. I don't know. As I've said before, there's a big piece of the fact that they needed to have nullsec appreciate Equinox. So, like, there had to be carrots on that in order to make it valuable. But I liken back to Citadels when they also put carrots on things, and those exact carrots were the things that hurt us years later, right? So, oh wait, I have a friend who had a huge bad faith bitcher. Will bitch about things that are fine and pretend that they aren't to get more gibs. I'm telling you, man, there is more than a fair share of that going on here. And now, not everybody who's complaining about this stuff is doing so 100% out of bad faith. There's a lot of people that just literally just believe what they're told and like incorporate it and then just, parrot it back to other people. So there are people that are legitimately feel aggrieved for sure. I think more players need to understand how the market and productions work. They don't complain as much as they understood, maybe. Yeah. And that's, so this is another thing I've said before, which is that like, just remember when you see somebody flipping out on the forums or flipping out on Reddit, you got to realize that like, this is a game. It's a complicated game, and it's a competitive game, and it's a challenging game, and it's a complicated game. And because of all of that, it's a game that you can lose, right? You can win the game, you can lose the game, right? I just lost the game. No. But you must ask yourself, what does losing the game look like, right? If someone has failed to adapt, right? There's a change that's being done. They failed to adapt to it. What are they going to do? They're going to flame out by bitching about it on the forums. So sometimes when you see somebody ranting about something, it's not so much that they're right. It's that this is what a dying player looks like, right? This is what a player that is failing to adapt looks like. Just because we don't agree with your view doesn't mean we don't understand it. Oh my God. CCP doesn't listen to us. Yeah, sometimes when you say something, CCP hears you and goes, yes, it's working. I think my message, let's pew-pew the station in Jeddah if the economy will fail. Oh, wait, was after this? Because they removed the ability to shoot and destroy NPC stations? You've never had the ability to shoot and destroy NPC stations. I started playing in 2008 and remember conversations very similar to this going on all the time back then too. At a certain point, you have to decide if you actually like the game or not. Yeah. And you got to realize that like this is a game about succeeding in spite of the challenges. You know, if like in real life, right? If you're doing a business and something happens to the economy, you know, a new policy is put in or a tariff or whatever, like you don't get to just bitch about it. You got to adapt or die. When one station got destroyed, they made them protected. I'm not going to say that that didn't happen because I don't know for sure, but I can't think of any station that's been... The only destroyed station that I know of was done so by the Mimitar during the Empyrean Age. Yeah, exactly, Malik. Here's the thing, though. Like, in fact, here's my proof for this, okay? The drunk Nix driver? That is Empyrean Age. And he wasn't drunk. Yeah, I think you're confusing lore stuff with player stuff. But prior to Citadels, stations could not be destructible. I actually remember CCP talking about this. This was one of the things that they had to figure out for Citadels to work. Because prior to Citadels, the idea that a market could go offline, right? Like because each station has its own market, right? The idea that a market could disappear was something that the game was not coded to deal with. That's true. People bitch about legislation a lot. That's fair. But again, there are people that are loudly bitching about it, and there are people quietly profiting from it. All right. Well, that was a fun discussion. I got a lot more heated than I thought I was going to. But it was good times, good times. All right, well, anything else? Let's talk about the bad news. The bad news is Eve Galaxy Conquest. All right. Yes, that is actually the one thing that I will stress right now, which is that right now is the first time since I've started playing Eve where mining plagioclast is better than mining Veldspar. So keep that in mind. Like, per M3, mining Pladge right now is better than Veldspar. Why would anyone want to tell you how they're making absurd amounts of money unless they're trying to hook you into some MLM scam? Exactly. Yeah. If you are being advertised, if someone's trying to tell you how to make a bunch of money, especially if it sounds like an advertisement, then congratulations, you're the mark. Okay. Now then, let's shift gears a little bit. Eve Galaxy Conquest. Or why can't CCP do anything right? Okay, so we are coming up on the start of Season 2 in Eve Galaxy Conquest. Actually, it's worth noting, first of all, let's go back to... When did they first announce the start of the main... Been a while. When was the actual game released? $10.28? Okay. September, October? September. Here it is. All soft launch servers will be back online. Okay, well, either way. So, over 2 months later, even though they said that seasons will only last 1 month, we get information about Season 2. It starts on the 13th. So, server 20 and 21 will be merged into a server. 22, 24, 25, and 28 will be merged into a server. 23, 26, and 27 will be a new server. And 29, 30, and 31 will be a new server. So a total of 11 different servers will be merged down to 5. Developed grids, October. Developed grids will now be auto-abandoned once limit has been reached. I'm not a big fan of that. So you're allowed to have 30 developed grids, which means basically if you pull a grid, if you take a grid that's above level 3, you can then continue to upgrade it all the way up to level 7. I think they changed it. But like, also when you have a capped out limit, when you take a new site, a new cell, an older cell, your lowest tier older cell gets automatically abandoned. Now, developed grids used to be immune to that, which was actually really good, at least for me, because sometimes I'm trying, like when I'm doing things, I'm trying to turn over the active tiles as I'm like fighting people or whatever. But like my developed grids were chosen way at the beginning and I've upgraded them and they're usually in a protected area. So the idea that like, if I'm capturing level 8s and suddenly one of my developed grids gets taken away because it was a level 7, it's like, what if I wanted to keep that? I don't know. I would much prefer to be able to lock down a cell to make it so it doesn't get auto-abandoned. But, and this feels like it's worse, but I guess that's because, like, level 7 grids aren't as good. Like, most people that are, like, higher end will eventually replace them all with level 8s, and so now you're replacing level 8s with level 8s instead of the level 7s so you can't upgrade. I don't know why they did it. I think it's unnecessary, partially. And that's a big thing about a lot of these changes that I've been seeing. We have such big issues. I feel like, why would you even do this kind of thing? But either way, home shield duration has been increased from 6 hours. 6 hours to 10 hours. This means that, like, if you want to prevent yourself from being attacked, you can sleep the night instead of most of the night. Okay, so with Season 2, players at any corpse will have the chance to win season rewards based on each corpse ranking and player individual contribution in their corpse. corporations in the same faction are now neutral by default. I don't know actually what this first thing means, besides like right now it just matters how far your corp got and what your rank is within the corp. But now they're going to focus on individual contributions in that corp. I guess this is just a way to try to distribute rewards better. Corporations in the same faction are now neutral by default. This is the part that is pretty ridiculous. Oh, thank you. So I was asking for people within the same faction to be able to like better assist each other. So like if a person within the same faction as me takes a gate, I can no longer build into the new area because that person has the gate and I can't take the gate from them without declaring war on them. It would be much better if different groups within the same faction could support each other in some way that isn't competitive. They decided to go the exact opposite direction, and now it's everyone versus everyone. You can, even in your own faction, you're now neutral by default. Which begs the question, why even have factions? But whatever. A corp can now have at most 2 friendly corps. So now you can't even have like big blah. You know, there's hard to do a blue donut anymore because you can't even friendly. This is actually pretty crazy, right? Because traditionally, what we've seen happen is the one powerful group takes over. And then the other 3 empires factions kind of start to band together against that one. This makes that barely possible. Like, because you could only friendly 1 corp in each of the other empires, which wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't for this next one. This one blows my mind. Oh, before you could only ally 2 non-faction, now it's just 2 allies total? Okay, well, whatever, still dumb. Corp size is now limited to 250 members. There was a post earlier that was showing off how bad of an idea this was. So here's the problem, okay? Okay. Intellectually, I understand what they're trying to do here, right? They're trying to end the ability for there to be like the mega force that kind of just, because when you're on the losing team, if you can't beat them, join them, right? So in a lot of these sorts of seasons, we see this gradual pooling of stuff of people into the winning group. And in a lot of places, they just stopped fighting each other and just all joined one group, and then those guys get to win, right? Because the ultimate objective is a PvE objective. There is no PvP required to win. So if everybody just decides to team up, then boom, you win, right? Cooperation wins. Well, CCP apparently doesn't want that as much. So by limiting the corp sizes, you can basically make sure that like not everybody can be in the same megacorp that's winning everything, right? It's a more limited thing. Now, the problem that I have with this is that prior to this, they fixed this problem by vastly increasing the corporation limit. So that way, basically each faction would coalesce into its own, ultimate corp. So that way it could function as like a single unit in the later game. That's what they did, especially in like 33 and beyond. But even in the earlier ones, right? Like I think 25 and beyond, they started to greatly increase the corporation size for new corps to up to like 500, right? Which means like, actually, I think I can probably pull it up. Although my battery is about to die. I'd have to, never mind. This is going to take too long. So like on server 31, the main corporation, Whale House, is at 450 members, which there's an automatic thing that lets you like click a thing to be part of the corporation in the next patch. And that is what's going to determine which conquest rewards you get for the previous season, for season 1, right? So what happens when there's not enough room for your corporation, right? If everyone just decided to click in to stay with Whalehouse in the next season, half of them aren't going to make it. How do they determine that? Is it first come, first serve? Is it based on what? Like, there's nothing here. It's just, screw you. You don't get to play with all of your friends that you were in with last time. There are lots of plans. Our plans got completely thrown out by this, and we're trying to figure out what we're going to do about it, because they got us to coalesce into these bigger groups, and now they're telling us that we can't be in those bigger groups. It's kind of silly. New commanders, Kelm and Hadakan, which is crazy because both of those have been in the game already, but just were inaccessible thanks to the tickets. But this new one, this makes me mad. Okay, so can I go here? Do we? Yeah. Everybody remember this? Everybody remember this tweet? What's the ship in this silhouette? Fighting valiantly against the Empire's mighty apocalypse. Here's a hint. This legendary vessel is joining EVE Galaxy Conquest in Season 2. Whalehouse Jr. Yeah, there you go. But according to the server update, new ship, Thunderchild. Only one. And what's weirder about this is that from people who have looked at it in the game, they've noticed that it seems like the Thunderchild replaced the Oracle, which we've talked about the Oracle many times before. Oddly enough, this would have been the very first time that a lot of people got a chance to get the Oracle, because it'll be in the dominance cache. But according to some of the reports I've seen, it's not even in the dominance cache anymore. So when you go and look at where was the there was a oh yeah, when you look in the game, in-game for yeah, this is one of the pictures from the upcoming thing from EVE Galaxy Conquest, and the Oracle may just not even be in the game anymore, or at least accessible to our people. Hold on a second. Hold on. CD dot. Shoot, hold on. McGruber, I'm not even going to repeat that. What? Nope. Why can't I? Wait, what? There it is. Oh boy. So let's go look at this real quick. We can go to rewards, dominance cache, view details. Oops. Oh yeah, the Oracle's still there. The Oracle's still there. What server am I on though? Hold on. What server am I on? Yeah, this doesn't look right. Yeah, this is 33. Hold on. Possibly that informal, non-mechanical enforced alliances may start to take precedence. You can just not attack people's stuff if they fly right colors. Yeah. Yeah, except for there's a lot of stuff like like turrets, right? Although turrets get messed up anyways, even with allies sometimes, so might be fine. Is this going to be different now? No. This is the same. Where's that new stuff coming from? Where's the new stuff that everybody's showing is? My game isn't updated. Okay, hold on. I do not see it. Oh, yeah, there it is. Why didn't it show up on my things to update? Weird. Give me a second. Give me a second. We'll look into this. In the meantime, new commanders, Kelm and Hadakon, which are the ones that were supposed to be there already. Thunderchild. Where are the other 3 or 4 ones that we were supposed to get, including the Roke and the Hyperion? Where are they? Fleets can now utilize fleet agents to assist in combat for more strategic depth. AI Genesis program, complete mission to upgrade levels and claim rewards. Whatever the heck that means. We don't even know what that means yet. Yeah, trying to have informal alliances will be hard due to accelerated gate usage restrictions, which is already true. Now you can pick any Empire style for your home base. Oh, thank you. When your home base is reduced to 0 by enemy players, your home base will become captured instead of relocated to a random location. No explanation of what that means. Unfinished Season 1 industry jobs are auto-finished when Season 2 starts, and duel is disabled, so no more dueling. I don't know, man. I want to like Eve Galaxy Conquest. It's a fun game. It's just every single decision that they make every day, it's just exhausting. It's just exhausting. Yeah, so here we go. We've got all of the epics that we didn't have before. This isn't even in the patch notes. But we've got Marcus, who's one of my favorites. I'm going to have to see how good he is, but like as a character, he's one of my favorites. We've got Pollock. These are guys that we would see sometimes that the enemy would use them, but we weren't able to get them ourselves. Larek. Who's Dramis? He's in Theodicy? Oh, he's just another Valkylier. Look how many Valkyliers they have. You like Marcus's stuff? Let's go look. His first ability, when your wing receives damage, 33% to inflict particle dust. Oh my god. That ability is so fucking strong, man. I know because I have it on Mentis Black. Gah. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Although it's only 12%. Black's is 120%, so it's a 10th as powerful. Is that correct? It's still pretty good. Oh, and this is okay. So this also increases damage by a total of 12% again. His 2 does damage to all enemy wings and inflicts particle dust on them. And then one of your wings gain excellent hit for the first 2 turns of battle. That's really good. increases kinetic damage by 70-80%. So yeah, no, Marcus is like it has a lot really going on to him. That excellent hit will help you out with Dramiels and oracles. The all wings damage will help against Vexers and Dragoons. The particle dust. The nice thing about particle dust is anytime an enemy like the Caracals or anything that has like rapid fire that hits a whole bunch of times really small, this can just keep on stacking on them. Will also boost particle dust. What will? Particle dust is an energy weapon. Although it's particle dust is now I don't even know what to say. Well, but it says chance to inflict particle dust on a single enemy wing to deal overtime energy damage each turn. But it says kinetic damage over time. I'm enjoying it without deaths. Yeah. Well, hold on. You would think that they would fix this shit. You would think that they would look into this stuff. This just says, this doesn't say energy damage or kinetic damage. It just says, look, guys, I'm tired. His 3, we have the excellent hit one, or we have deal kinetic damage to a single enemy. When circuit overload deals damage, has a 80% chance to neural shutdown. That's pretty good. I don't know whether or not I'd rather a neural shutdown or an excellent hit. I guess it really depends on. Both of those would be pretty decent, actually. If you can neural shut down the Dramiels, that's almost as good as an excellent hit. Confusion damage. I've taken psychic damage. Yeah, Marcus is a seriously solid epic. That's true. Any others? Any other surprises? No new epic shield weapon or whatever's. There's the Stormbringer. Yeah. So here we go, guys. If you notice, there is no Oracle in the Dominance cache anymore. There's just this question mark. Which they've only said that there's one ship coming, so this would be the Thunderchild. Where's the Oracle? Where's the other ships that we were told that we were getting? And then there's these two guys, which is bizarre because literally before I updated it, if you go back in the video, you can see that we already was able to see them last season. So I don't know what they're doing now with these guys. Wait a minute. Wasn't Hadakon up here? Whoa, there it is right there. Yeah, they made Hadakon into a question mark. Whatever, man. Either way, I still want to do a review of Galaxy Conquest, and we're still going to be talking about guides and stuff, but I did want to give you guys an update as to the Season 2 stuff, which is coming in just 3 days. For better or worse, we will definitely be continuing to play. But let me know what you guys think. Are you happy with these patch notes? What was the thing that is missing, do you think? Or do you think I'm wrong about any of my assessment? Please let me know in the comments down below. But other than that, we should probably move on. So with all that said, I've been Ashtarothi, the voice of New Eden. Till next time, I'll see you in space. All right. Now then. But remember, we get 3. That is true. That is true. We now get, what, 3 free tickets for the season boxes? So that's good. Old Man Dario. Yeah, I want him. I want him. That'd be cool. You know what would be cool? Captains that can do things outside of combat, right? Like, wouldn't it be cool if Old Man, like, he gives up one of his combat abilities for the ability to, like, create a little bridge that other people can teleport to? Right? Like, make it so more world map utility than in combat utility. That'd be kind of cool. You'd have, like, a logistics fleet and then your combat fleets. I like this idea. We should get on it. I really wish that we knew more about what these fleet agents are going to be. But I guess we'll find out soon enough. All right. Last but not least for the day. We are going to be continuing with the EVE Frontier white paper. We talked about this on Tuesday. We went through the first 3 sections, the abstract, the philosophy, and the digital physics. We are now going to be continuing on with economy. We're looking at the white paper to try to figure out what all we can talk about when it comes to the EVE Galaxy EVE Frontiers, and look at what they're trying to do. Last time we looked a lot into like the digital physics and the idea of this fully autonomous world and what they were looking for. We went over Drifter Hive changes. Yeah, we did talk about the Drifter Hive changes on Monday. I also did the New Eden News that talked about that. We actually just put out the New Eden News as its own edited video. So we talk about it a little bit there. But, I mean, we know that we're about to ramp up into something, but it wasn't this week, apparently. That's all I know. Okay. Let us begin. The EVE Frontier economy, much like the Earth's human economy, emerges from the harsh nature of its universe. Survival, growth, and the reconstruction of a broken galaxy demands cooperation amongst its inhabitants, who achieve these goals primarily through large-scale collaboration. Ultimately, the vision is to transfer full control of the economy to the players, allowing them to govern everything from taxation rates to the appearance of raw materials throughout the universe. How are you going to allow players to determine the appearance rate of raw materials throughout the universe? As we just covered in the EVE economy discussion, players are really bad at assessing what levels of raw materials are required. This player-driven economy will be the cornerstone of EVE Frontier's evolving world. Much like the digital physics that the economy emerges from, it will move at different speeds as the world builds up. The concept of pace layering captures this well. So this is basically saying that, like, the lower level understanding moves slower than higher tier things that are built on that, right? So natural phenomena or natural requirements move very slowly. Like, that changes very slowly. You know, the requirement for food or shelter or, you know, those kinds of resources, these evolve extremely slowly. Whereas culture evolves much faster, but not necessarily as fast. You know, like, you know, certain cultures have been around for hundreds of thousands of, or tens of thousands, whatever, thousands of years without much of adjustment. Governance changes over faster in a lot of ways. Infrastructure changes over faster than that. It changes and grows and evolves faster than governance does. You know, like, there are cultures that are older than America, and there are infrastructure that's newer than America. Is that where, you know, is a way of thinking about it. Commerce changes much faster, on a decade level or so, and then fashion and art is basically near constant change. So that's kind of just what they're arguing. Now, what this means in this case, not 100% sure. I mean, I think they're just accepting the reality of how economics works, as of like showcasing that this is what's supposed to be represented within the universe. We believe that participants and contributors to a persistent virtual universe, one that spans decades, should have rightful ownership over the digital property they create or that emerges from their collective achievements. In Eve Frontier, everything that created will exist either as material or as assembled singletons, a permanent, unique object within the universe imbued with the detailed records of its creation and the contributors behind its components. These singletons can be freely traded on the Eve Frontier marketplace or any other third-party marketplace. Since all objects in the frontier are produced and manufactured by players, every stage of the singleton's life cycle will be meticulously tracked from creation to eventual destruction. Pillars of the frontier economy. Eve Frontier is a full participant in the economy of planet Earth. Okay. Meaning it is fully open and thus free to interact with other economies, virtual or real. All actions, resources, and results will be unpredictable. Probabilistic determinations based on digital physics will be used in all cases, so CCP can't even predict the outcome of a player interaction with the world. I mean, that's the one. This whole like probabilistic outcome thing like feels very. It makes me nervous because like, sure, you open up a loot box or something, and there's a chance of something good in it. There's a chance of something bad in it. But, like, everything is probabilistic? What? So, if I put it in a market order, there's a chance that it just fails or something? Like, I don't understand what they mean by probabilistic outcomes on every single level. Whatever. To fully realize the vision of a player-driven economy, everything in it will be compostable. Currencies, items, etc. Compostability simply means that they can be combined with each other and that all objects and items in the game are assembled from the same set of base parts. When designed in this way, every object in the game will be interoperable, allowing for dynamic combinations and interactions across the Eve Frontier universe. That is something I'm much more interested in, like seeing how these Lego bricks are supposed to be able to stack together. Because right now we've got very limited, like they have this open idea of like, oh, programmable stuff and their own economy and all that stuff. But like, I don't understand how these Lego blocks are supposed to be used in order to create that yet, you know? That sounds impossible to balance. That just sounds unplayable. I mean, again, it like complex systems are reliant on initial conditions. So that's what's going to be the most important thing is like, what are these immutable rules in which it's built on? Are they sustainable? Every action in the frontier requires energy and nothing is risk-free. Because everything involves risk and everything requires energy, the act of multiboxing or botting should lead to diminishing returns compared to a human player focusing on maximizing the energy expenditure while calculating the risk and reward. Particularly the usage of fuel as being required for an in-game action provides the game mechanics a way to measure the impact of, collect data on, create policy for, to systematically be resilient to Sybil attacks on the economy throughout exploitative abuse from the automation of game activities. Let's look up this Sybil attack thing. They keep on referring to this. A Sybil attack uses a single node to operate many active fake identities or Sybil identities simultaneously with peer-to-peer networks. So the idea is that like with multi-boxers or with botters, one person is being multiplexed to like 60 people. So that's a Sybil attack because they're using fake identities. So this is saying that because of the fact that each one requires fuel, each one requires consideration and cost, that undermines the idea of like multi-boxing because ultimately you're not getting, we talked about this before. The increase in effort from one account to two accounts is quite a bit because you have to consider a lot more stuff and you have to pay for two accounts. But to upgrade from 2 accounts to 10 accounts actually requires no more additional effort because all of the additional effort that's required to figuring out how to expand it it doesn't change if it's 2 or 10. That's just how many are you running at a time. So since each one of them generates their own wealth and they don't have any additional cost beyond startup cost, then it just becomes like how much more money that you can get above your Plex cost. In this case, and that means that the more actions you can take, the better off you are, with actions requiring fuel, that's not necessarily true anymore. Now, will this actually be so big of a difference that it doesn't require, like, botting isn't as valuable anymore? I don't know if that's necessarily true. However, I think that what it does is it makes bots consider the economy in a way that they don't have to in EVE, which means that bots, instead of representing a violation of the economy, may in fact just represent a participant in the economy. You know what I mean? A movie about multiple personalities from 1976, Sybil, now references multiple actions from a single point of computing. Hey, that's cool. Thanks, Punch. In this way, in-game economy, Sybil attacks may become prohibitively costly and impractical, while automation changes for game activities can be dynamically adjusted through data-driven fuel cost tuning. This ensures a balance between automated processes and prevents potential abuses for inaccuracy and costing, maintaining fairness within the EVE frontier economy. Okay. Okay, I'm going to say the hard thing. My concern with this is the fact that one of the reasons why multi-boxing is so popular in EVE Online is how simple the interactions exist in EVE Online. Therefore, they are more easy to bot. But also, let's be frank, the tasks that players are asked to do to represent being part of the game are often trivial and boring. Okay? When I'm plexing, when I'm in a plex, if all I'm doing is just mindlessly pressing spacebar, looking to see if somebody shows up on my D-scan, this is not engaging play, okay? And I can have my video or Netflix or whatever it is that I'm watching on the other screen, and that functions as a distraction. But there's so much of EVE that places its weight on those distractions, players becoming distracted. But more importantly, we hold this huge premium on player activity, player like being at the game, at the keyboard. We don't like AFK activities, even though the only difference between an AFK activity and a non-AFK activity is having to hit F1 a little bit more often, right? We see these arguments prop up when it comes to like auto-targeting or auto-shooting targets or anything like that. Like, people that bitch about the idea of like, okay, well, I've suggested in the past when you lock multiple targets, the shooting should just go to the next target after the first target is destroyed. And people are like, oh, that makes it easier to bot. First of all, no, it doesn't. We've talked about that before. But more importantly, is that you sitting at the keyboard? Is that you hitting F1 so meaningful of an interaction that you feel fulfilled by that? Do you feel like you're actually piloting it because you have to hit F1 instead of just watching it to see whether or not it does it correctly itself and adjusting things as necessary? Does that make the person play the game instead of just watch the game? The things that we use as metrics and standards of what playing the game is, let's be honest, is probably one of the reasons why the game struggles sometimes. Because we put this strange premium on boredom, right? Where it's like, you know, death is a serious matter. This is a thing that's fundamental to EVE Online. We want to make it so when you lose ships, that loss is painful. But the reason why that loss is painful is because of how boring and tedious the work that it takes to build that thing is to a lot of people, right? So, and I'm not saying that there are absolutely people that love hauling. There are absolutely people that love mining. But I'm just talking about, like, let's really talk about how engaging this game is, right? And the reason why I bring that up is because when we're looking at this thing about Sybil attacks and player economy and all that stuff, like, the question is that if you strip away everything else, is the game itself that's there interesting enough to play in the moment, right? Is mining still just sitting there waiting for your lasers to turn off so that way you can target the next rock or, compress or drop off your ore, and that is the only excitement that you have besides every once in a blue moon getting an attempted gank, right? So that's one of my big concerns, is that, like, is the actual act of playing the game fun? And EVE can be fun at some times. But let's be frank, EVE Online sometimes, in a lot of ways, relies on things being boring or tedious as a cost to the player that we put value in. And I think that a lot of people that aren't indoctrinated into EVE see that, and they just don't see the value in it. They don't see the value in sitting there in space for 2 hours, barely playing your game, only paying attention enough to avoid being ganked. Maybe that's the real problem. Half was play farm merge valley while plexing. You know how good a Plex Siphon Skinner would be if the fees to build skins from players would be about 5 to 10 Plex instead of 60 to 150? Yeah, what's funny? I was reading this thing about Marvel Rivals. Marvel Rivals has made $130 million in less than a month, or in about a month. And that's with about 20 million players, which is fucking wild for a free-to-play game. That means the vast majority of players are paying more than $1 each. Why? I'll tell you this. The Battle Pass right now, they just released a Battle Pass with 8 skins in it for $10. Their premium expensive skins are $15 to $20 each. The previous Battle Pass, I picked up the previous Battle Pass not because I needed it, but because by the time I got it, I earned enough premium currency that it was like $4. Why not get it, right? And you know what? That why not get it got them $130 million in a month. So yeah, I agree with you. Make something, if they made it cheap enough that people were like, why not do it? Then guess what? I think that they'd spend a lot more. I'd make another 10 alts if I had a sub. Good. I don't want you to have more alts. I don't want you to have more alts. Hot take. Every time somebody's like, oh, this is so cost prohibitive, I've gone down to 2 alts. Fucking good. That makes the game better. I want you to buy skins. Don't get me wrong. But, like, the whole point of this page is talking about how destructive you having 20 alts is. The final EVE Frontier economy will ultimately be owned and operated entirely by players. However, an economy cannot begin like this. Similarly to how EVE Online economy, it will be kickstarted with a robust market system using non-player characters. Market transactions will be taxed. Buy and sell orders spread will server... Buy and sell orders spread will server Tor managing the economy. Market transactions will be taxed. Buy and sell orders spread will serve to manage the economy, leaving plenty of gap for players to occupy. As the economy matures, NPC involvement organically fades into the background. 3 is good. 1 sign alt, 1 subcap, 1 cap. I agree. 3 is the max. I would say 3 is the max. Superior fan base. I bought that skin so fast. So fast. The issue is CCP sees its game as a premium and players should be willing to pay premium prices. This was during the 1000 Genes era, so I don't know if the internal attitude has changed. I mean, yeah, but this isn't just CCP. This is like this big theory within the gaming industry where it's like, well, if we put a high value on it, then people will value it highly. But if anything, I think that you could argue that having a low value, I would say that you would want to maximize coverage. If you can convince every single one of your players to buy something, even if it's for $1, That should be better than convincing 10% of the people to pay $10 in the end. I'm a 43 million SP Alpha solo player. PvPer, y'all buy as many alts as you need. All right. I had a plan to make all Golden Armada skins for every race. Because definitely Amar Empire bought some ships from other factions and painted them gold plate. Yeah, I could see that. Pro tip for that, if you want a solid color, instead of buying it 4 different times, you can just buy the fade and then push it all the way against it and then full fade it. The problem with that is then if they have potato graphics, they don't see it at all. The only one I wouldn't paint Amar is Mimitar. They have the Nefantar tribe. Yeah, the Nefantar look really good. And Amarian. All right. At the outset, NPCs will be able to set the initial pricing for commodities and resources. Each star system will have its own distinct rates with the spread between them, allowing for arbitrage traders to capitalize on these price differences. Successes in the endeavor will depend on their ability to efficiently manage the navigation and inherent risks of traveling between solar systems. As players grow more efficient, they will begin to undercut the NPC commodity prices, gradually taking control of the markets. The supply and demand in each region will be driven by population dynamics, with increased demand in a particular star system naturally attracting more supply as players respond to market needs. This emergent economic behavior will also will allow players to shape the flow of resources, further wresting control from NPCs as players take on more responsibility and thus opportunity. Large items crafted by the player base will also play a factor in the economy, as these items are singletons. They can be bought and sold in the in-game marketplace or any blockchain-based substrate. As these items are compostable down to their base resources, players can know how much energy was used to construct all of the composite parts, giving a singleton a fundamental base value. The frontier's raw resource populate dynamically according to probabilistic distributions based on digital physics. These will be impossible to predict and, as such, are one of the instigators of constant market volatility. How can they make sure that it is impossible to predict, especially when they take their hand off the wheel? There has to be some sort of process that makes this probabilistic determinations, and players will eventually figure it out. Hearing more about this game feels like it'll age like milk. There is a lot of their, like, I will say there's a lot of potential to this game. Like, the idea of, like, storing it on the blockchain so as to make it so that it is not tied to CCP's database is actually pretty cool, especially when it comes to you owning the item, because CCP didn't create the item, you did with your own fuel. Everything in the universe requires fuel to operate. Requiring fuel is a task in and of itself. Fuel is created by the catalyst to refine crude matter, which will be extracted from rifts using specialized lenses outfitted to ships. Lenses and catalysts both break down over time, so replacements will be necessary. Because the tools to create fuel require an allocation of resources through subscription-granted lenses and catalysts, or through EVE tokens granting additional lenses and catalysts, fuel will always have some kind of value denominated by EVE tokens. The ability to control the lens catalyst to EVE token exchange rate will be transferred to the players over time as the economy matures. This is it, guys. That's the key. Here is the entire... This is it. This is where it all breaks down, or this is where it all comes from, okay? So, everything in the game requires fuel. So, to put it into this, like, yeah, so everything requires a certain amount of fuel to consume, or to do, right? Everything from warping, to building something, to deploying something, to whatever, right? It all requires fuel. This fuel requires mining from rifts. Mining from rifts requires special crystals, or lenses, right? Those lenses can only be bought by EVE token, which is crypto, which is, you know, on the, I think on the Ethereum blockchain, they said, or subscriptions. So in other words, every single lens in the game represents actual real life money being spent in one way or another. And that makes it so that all fuel in the game represents some amount of real-life value in order for it to exist. That's it. That's the entire game plan, guys. Everything is built on this idea. All of your stuff is stored on the blockchain, so it's a public ledger. and everything that you do in the game requires a little bit of money in order to make happen. Whether or not you like it, that's what we're looking at. That's the grand strategy. Everything in the game requires fuel to run. So items in the game will have a nominal base value plus the time and risk it took to construct them, the item in question. The amount of fuel required to move and activate objects is directly proportional to the mass of the object in question. The larger the object, the more fuel is required. There are two main currencies in EVE that exist in the EVE Frontier ecosystem. EVE Token, a fungible cryptocurrency that exists primarily as a utility token and exclusively on the blockchain as a means of exchange for bridging the external blockchain and the in-game economy. Spend it to purchase additional lenses and catalysts, and hold it to governance power within player-built organizations or for EVE Frontier protocol choices and game decisions. The tokenomics of EVE tokens will be released in a separate document so as to not take the focus away from the game in this white paper. And then Lux, a fungible virtual currency that functions similarly to ISK in EVE Online. Lux is used as an in-game currency, and the in-game economy operates with it. NPC buy and sell is with ISK. Enterprising players may be able to earn enough Lux. Sell with Lux. Enterprising players may be able to earn enough Lux to purchase their game subscriptions entirely with Lux. Lux is built on a token standard, but lives exclusively on the Carbon development platform running EVE Frontier. As such, it cannot be traded outside of CDP, which is the Carbon development platform. So EVE token is the full-fledged crypto token, and Lux is the internal to EVE Frontier's currency. Additionally, additional currencies can be integrated into the game through various tokens created and controlled by third-party builders and players. Thanks to the nature of blockchain, players can create their own tokens at will, using them to organize a tribe or syndicate through governance mechanics operating as parallel third-party apps. These apps can be integrated into the game's mechanisms via the Carbon development platform, the infrastructure platform, which contains the game engine and additional components required to operate EVE Frontier. Players have full autonomy to establish their own rules for these tokens. Since all tokens integrated with the CDP will follow the same interface and standards, they will be fully composable and interpretable with each other. On the Frontier, players will be able to build close to anything that they can imagine utilizing resources found there. The compostable nature of the resources of the world will allow for an extensive material ecosystem. As each item is a singleton, players will be creating and changing unique items with unique and permanent history, such as inscribing major battles it participated in. Entrepreneurial players will take advantage of these powerful capabilities to make unique and enticing builds, fetching a price on the open market for their creation. All of this will be bound by digital physics and enable the tools such as smart assemblies, embedded HTML5 user interfaces in the client, smart contracts running EveNet, and the fact that all code powering the ecosystem will be open source. This does not mean that everyone needs to be an engineer to participate. Creative visions and entrepreneur spirit will be the driving force. We expect players to create a bounty board system for players to request contributions from experts and for in-game tasks. If the contracts are fulfilled, the EVE token will be transferred to the player who delivered the goods. With this simple system, development in the Frontier will be respondent to players' demand and capitalistic forces. How do they see this coming to be? Are they going to support this, or do they expect us to just make it? Are they asking us to make like a whole bunch of extra tokens? I don't actually know what it looks like to make crypto tokens. I imagine it's like an upfront cost as you mint a bunch of tokens and then you try to sell it to other people, right? What database is going to hold all these unique data? Well, again, like a lot of this is going to be held on the blockchain, but then there's also the Carbon Engine's blockchain thing, the CDP, Carbon Development Platform, which will be open source and will run some of the more fluid stuff, I think. The whole point is to move this away from the traditional database system, I think. All right, social organization and politics. One could argue that human culture has evolved by overcoming challenges through increasingly complex organization into social groups and systems. Our mind instinctively seek to build infrastructure that enables us to tackle grand collective goals, shaping societies capable of addressing ever larger problems in a bid to improve the odds of survival and prosperity. Be honest. Hey, players, go build your own game for us. I mean, you say that, superior fan, but that's like literally the point of this, right? This is not a, we've made a game, come play it. We have made a space colonization game. We have made space, go colonize it. Like, this is further in the direction of sandbox than EVE Online, because it's giving us, like, it really is about what we create within that universe. That is the beginning and the end of the story. So absolutely, what game will we build given these tools in this space? That is the entire point of this. If in EVE Frontier, that challenges the monumental task of rebuilding a broken, desolate, and unforgiving universe from the ground up. This harsh environment, dominated from 3 unstable, unpredictable, supermassive black holes, rogue AIs, and ultimately the unpredictable nature of human players, ensure that the survival of the frontier will be anything but easy for those who dare to inhabit it. One of the things that's important about this is that this is not the first time that an MMO has tried to do this whole, like, everything is players. As players do stuff, then the infrastructure will be built up and, you know, so on and so forth. That is a good question of whether or not we're going to be able to change the modeling of ships. There has been some things that show that that might be possible, but I don't know 100%. But so, like, this has happened before. Like, this is not a new concept. This is not a novel concept. This idea of, like, this is an MMO where players are going to build up in this universe. So all the towns are built by players, and all of the markets are built by players, and all of the quests are built by players. This has happened multiple times before. Asheron's Call 2 did it. Fallout 76 did it. The thing about those two games, though, is that the concept failed spectacularly. Like, the idea of, like, there being nothing there besides what the players put in made it so terrible. Albion Online is based a lot off of EVE Online, but I think that Albion still has more of a... It isn't just this, though. Like I said, it's closer to EVE Online, as far as I understand. But the idea of, like, there are no cities, you know? Only players can build, like, the cities have to be... When Asheron's Call first came out, the cities were basically like ruins, and then as people did more production crafting in those areas, the cities kind of built up, and the idea was to do it organically, and it's awful. In Fallout 76, they tried to make it where there was no NPCs because it was supposed to be like, you know, Fallout 76, we're recolonizing a broken world that's irradiated and dangerous. It was awful. Players did not accept this idea of, like, okay, well, here's this open world of possibility for you to go to. Everybody wants there to be something to do, right? As much as we say that we like sandboxes, even EVE Online has a fair amount of, you know, rides and stuff that get people involved and into it and understanding it. So, you know, it isn't that this idea is so alien. It's just that it's never worked before. Now, they obviously have a lot that might make it work, but, like, that's the real danger, right? Is this even going to be fun at all? We will be embracing player-driven organization from day one, empowered by novel social frameworks and governance models that help players organize at scale as they band together to rebuild a broken world. Striking the right balance is essential. We aim to create a unifying framework and standard for organization while providing players with enough flexibility to explore this creativity. This will allow them to invent diverse organization paradigms that align with their vision, free from unnecessary constraints. The other thing I'm concerned about is the idea of, like, again, in EVE, so much of, like, trying to build something up gets undermined by the fact that there are big, powerful people that just want to tear things down, right? So what happens if in this brave frontier, the only thing that people find exciting is ripping apart other people's stuff? It's going to be even harder to start trying to build things up. How do we actually form this society when there's going to be a lot of players that are just looking to tear it down? Players want content. Most players don't want to be boring backbone for others' content. I mean, it works for EVE. Frontiers will feature tribes made of tens to hundreds of players. Tribes can unite in the form of syndicates consisting of hundreds of thousands of tribes. Tribes and syndicates are likely to form as players coordinate and collaborate to navigate the environment, maximize efficiency, conquer rivals, and pursue a range of other strategic goals. Tribes and syndicates within the Frontier universe will adhere to the principles of autonomy and collective decision-making, with control and access governed by a combination of governance structures and voting power. The flexibility of these organizational structures being written into the solidity enables these structures to be designed as a standalone external application that interacts seamlessly with in-game mechanics. This highlights the technological potential of a blockchain in the backbone of customizable, player-driven organizational frameworks, similar to how smart assembly function in a game. Man, the other thing about all this is that there's so much of this game that just sounds like a crypto wet dream, right? Like this idea of like, because this is another one of those things I've heard from crypto before, right? Where like you can create a social structure with smart contracts that run how things work. It's been a disaster historically when people have tried to do this, by the way. But, you know, maybe in a virtual world, it'll be, the stakes are a little bit lower, so it'll be possible to do. But like, there's so much of this that are just like designed to cater to what the crypto enthusiast mind looks for. These organizational entities will exist as smart objects, on-chain entities governed by the game's rules. Thus, third-party developers can extend the logic and capabilities of these structures, allowing for innovative player governance. By empowering players to shape their own societies through emergent interactions with these smart objects, eFrontier aims to create dynamic, evolving universe driven by collective player agency. All right, guys, we're going to host a galactic election. Everybody has to go to your local polling booth smart object to cast your vote. The framework allows for infinite possibilities, limited only by the player's creativity and solidity code. We have forged the fundamental tools of social organization, yet the nature of the tribes and syndicates will be entirely shaped by the will of the players, evolving in unique and unpredictable ways. True to our core philosophy and emergent behavior and compostability, we invite and empower players to mold these groups to their desires. What emerges from this is a rich tapestry of diversity, where no two organizations, much like their real-world counterparts, will ever be identical. For example, tribes and syndicates may diverge along the following lines. Mandate. Tribes and syndicates may form for specific purposes, such as trading, piracy, defense, or protection, and other player-driven mandates that have not yet been imagined. Management style. Each of these entities may diverge from management styles at the discretion of each group, ranging from democratically voted leadership to cults of personality to authoritarianism, to name a few. It'll be interesting to see which of these rise to prominence and power. Organizational structure. Within each tribe and syndicate, players may form departments or further specialization in support of a cause. Much like real-world counterparts, departments such as human resources, IT, logistical, operations, finance, and many and more may be created in response to the needs of relatively complexity and cooperation within the organization. Beyond the mere function and structure of organizations, players may also leverage smart assemblies and power of third-party development to further accelerate the organization's goals. Whether your goal is to create proprietary tools for tribes and syndicates, use a tribe or syndicate to proliferate the use of a tool, or something else entirely, the only limit is your imagination. Technology. With eFrontier, we want to create a world that will outlive us all. This means that the world of eFrontier cannot rely on a single person or entity to exist and thrive. This requires select building blocks which enable the realization of this vision over time, which has led us to choose to build eFrontier on a blockchain. While a blockchain presents short-term challenges, we believe that it can be overcome with this new technology, and techniques continue to develop, especially in the field of cryptography. A key driving force behind eFrontier's architectural structure is to overcome the technical and legal constraints that have long limited traditional MMOs and virtual worlds, including EVE Online. In these systems, players contribute immense value through the content creation and community engagement, yet their efforts are often curtailed by end-user license agreements due to various legal and operational factors. Over the past years, blockchains have emerged as a reliable platform for decentralized development, particularly in adversarial environments, such as virtual worlds with player versus player mechanics like EVE Online, where the potential for conflict is ever present. Blockchain via smart contracts enable third-party developers to contribute to the game's ecosystem without needing approval from anyone. This permissionless system allows anyone to build new features and content, fostering an open, innovative ecosystem where the Frontiers ecosystem can expand naturally. Blockchain also saves the critical challenge in MMO development. Retrofitting tools and APIs after the game has launched. In many MMOs, communities and third-party develop external tools to the extent of gameplay or supports the ecosystem, but these are often constrained by the proprietary nature of the original game code. eFrontier leverages blockchain to build a distributed, compostable, extensible, and open infrastructure from the start, enabling anyone to contribute to it at any time. This eliminates the bottlenecks caused by a single controlling entity and fosters greater emergence. As the game evolves through the collective contributions of the entire community, blockchain applications layer, the smart contracts environment, become a natural fit for the standardized API layer for decentralized development in the Frontiers gaming core. I will say that this is actually something that is working out. Hold on. I worry that we'll end up in a void of singletons like Fallout 76 or a massive super block like Eve Galaxies. Also, who is hosting the servers for all this? Who's paying the power bill? And that's the thing, is that like with the vast majority of the data being held on the blockchain and the rest of it being open source, the answer to that question is whoever wants to, right? And you could even make it so it's distributed in such a way that like everybody who's playing the game helps contribute to its operation in a very like sleepers are the construct kind of way. Now, this is extremely hoity-toity, like high-level theoretical stuff, but like it is kind of the direction that they're going, and it is technically possible from a technical point of view. The one thing I do hear by reading this is just like, can you just hear them dripping with the frustrations that they've had with EVE Online? You know, think of how hard it has been for CCP to keep their own API updated, right? You can see, like, I can hear in their voice them being like, yes, this fixes our problem that we have had with EVE Online. But I do agree that, like, one of the biggest concerns is that anytime you have these sort of open world PvP sort of things, there's always like the one apex force that begins suppressing all of the other forces, right? And you know, just like Eve Galaxy Conquest or even EVE Online or other places like that. I think that that's one of the reasons why, you know, like the universe is so big with so many solar systems. Even if one group becomes super powerful, there's still enough space for people to be away from them enough to not be impacted by them as much. But yeah, it is a real, like, everything can go right technically and the game just fail because people suck. I think that's the real big that's the big concern, right? My fear is that it'll devolve into what the Chinese server turned into. I doubt it's going to be probably not like the Chinese server, just because maybe. The other thing I think, like, the big question that I have about this, they're like, okay, Bored Apes are a URL stored in a blockchain that points to an image hosting server. That server goes down, the URL points to nothing. That's a good point. That's a good point. So, yeah, but that URL is unique and you own it. You own that URL. You paid for it. No. So there's a question that comes out, and I've heard like murmurs about this concern, and I think it's real, which is like, and this is a very crypto thing too. They're so busy trying to figure out how to circumvent past restrictions that I'm not sure if they're asking the important question. If CCP owns the space physics and they stop hosting the space physics server, then it all goes up in smoke. Yeah, but they've straight up said that they want to not own it. At a certain point, they want to be able to make it so that it's running completely independent of them. That the space physics is immutable and even they cannot change it. That was something that they talked a lot in part 1. But so who keeps the lights on? I imagine, man, I don't know. But here's the thing. Like, this is very much like you spent so much time thinking about whether or not you could. Nobody ever thought about whether or not you should, right? Like, is there a reason why every single MMO has up until now used the end user license agreement to protect them from financial issues with it being considered like a real life commodity? Like, they're doing this in order to get around this idea that you can't own, like, that the virtual economy and the real economy must remain separate, because that's how things have always been, because that's how the laws are. We're going to try to circumvent those laws by making the pieces owned by players. Even if that works, I'm still not 100% convinced that's a good thing. Yeah, commodities frauding. Exactly. What happens when you have to put all of your EVE assets into your fucking taxes? To support the decentralized approach, eFrontier will be a fully open source code base, including the gameplay client and the entire CDP game engine. This commitment to open source ensures that eFrontier will not only overcome the traditional limitations of MMOs, but also evolve continuously, driven by both developers and players in an open, transparent ecosystem. We hope that these community-focused steps, Eve would live forever. Thus, building on a blockchain is not a flippant buzzword-chasing decision. Rather, it is the most pragmatic answer to the technological limitations encountered when building virtual worlds. I kind of do agree with this idea of like blockchain being really good for the building of virtual worlds, like in theory. Here's an interesting question too. So now we got to steal an identity and max profits for the game. Oh God. And that's the other thing is that like we're so reliant on the fact that these things are immutable, right? That there's no restrictions on who can do stuff within the game. But what if we need restrictions on who can do stuff in the game? People can't be banned, right? Like, the blockchain is immutable. If someone posts something flagrantly terrible, like, it can be deleted from the game, but it's still in the blockchain, and it's still, like, who can delete it from the game? If there's no, like, is there a game masters? Is there any kind of referee whatsoever to control conduct? Or is this literally, like, gonna become the biggest cesspool on the internet, right? Like, I don't know, man. I'm really concerned about that. And also, if the CDP game engine is open sourced and the data is held on the blockchain, what's to stop two different entities running their own copy of the CDP game client? And then what happens when somebody makes a change and it changes the block? Are they going to be in sync? That's, ooh. Well, luckily the next section is challenges. So what happens when someone falsifies space physics? What happens when someone codifies CCP loves Hitler or something worse? Well, I don't think that they can, like, I don't think people can codify new things per se when it comes to e-physics. They said that the digital physics is codified, blah, blah, blah. Like, this is all happening before the fact. Now, how, I'm not 100% sure, but they talk about immutable principles that everything will be built upon. But yeah, no, I mean, CCP Love Hitler is definitely like, it's hard to think of a system that allows the freedom and flexibility and autonomy that this system has that is protected from things like that, right? Like, if you're allowing people to do whatever they want, then there's no protections about people being their worst selves. And that is one of the concerns that I have, is that none of this, I haven't seen a single word addressing that particular concern, right? So now we've got a universe where real money is involved because real people's purchases are involved and real value is involved. And there's immutable physical laws, but there's not immutable social laws. That seems very dangerous. If all of this is open source, then can't you just make new principles and set all of the old pointers to clients that you connect to? Except for, like, again, so the runtime operation, you could potentially change, like, how it affects things, but the fundamental rules that they built it on is codified in the blockchain. So you wouldn't be able to change that. I honestly don't know what you'd be able to change if you extended the client. Aside from all the bad shit people would do, how would you keep thematic aesthetics consistent? You don't. And I don't know if that's necessarily even a bad thing, right? Because player creativity, if you're going to allow player creativity, then you got to be willing to, I guess, accept slop, right? Because let's be honest, the vast majority of players will not be creative enough to create much more than slop. That's just the way it works. Go watch any of Josh Strife Hayes' videos talking about sandboxes or anything like that. Like, whenever you open up, the more you open up creativity, the more you sacrifice thematic consistency. Okay. With this means that the world of eFrontier cannot rely on a single person or entity. This requires select building blocks which enable the realization of this vision over time, which has led us to choose to build eFrontier on a blockchain. While blockchain presents short-term challenges, did we already read all this? Yeah, we already read all this. Challenges. There we are. While the use of blockchain technology brings the affordances just listed, we also bring with them challenges. These challenges, as we see them, are scalability. To achieve consensus on the state of the world and record the transitions of that state, blockchain incurs a cost over traditional databases. We will overcome this cost by initially balancing what state to put on-chain and what to put on traditional database managed by a centralized server. Over time, as technologies and techniques develop, eFrontier will transition from centralized servers to a fully decentralized and on-chain provability. So what they're saying is that right now, transactions on the blockchain is costly. But their theory is over time, technologies will improve on how blockchains are managed, and then more and more can afford to be on the blockchain until the entire database is on the blockchain. Privacy. The inherent transparency of the current blockchain implementation poses challenges. Maintaining information asymmetry, critical for experiences like traditional or territorial conquest in eFrontier. To address this, eFrontier will continue to adopt innovative cryptographic constructs that safeguard privacy while ensuring compostability and security, allowing for the strategic depth and security that are at the core of the game's experience. Right now, I don't believe that there would be any way. Like, right now, you could just tell if everything's on the blockchain. Blockchain's a public ledger. So you could just check to see where everybody's stuff is. You could. There wouldn't be a way to hide it. Do you know that it takes hours to make an Ethereum transaction? How many memory does the blockchain ledger take up? So there are solutions like Redstone. Redstone layers on top of the blockchain and basically functions as a database abstraction layer for the blockchain, to make it with that consideration in mind. So there are real solutions in play, but yeah, these are real concerns still. The following image shows a snapshot of the body of cryptographic tools that may help overcome these challenges. Although the field of advanced applied cryptography is moving fast, we have experimented with various techniques to establish a clear path towards building information asymmetry concepts such as fog of war as provable on-chain mechanisms. This approach allows us to maintain the strategic complexity of these features while preserving the compostability and flexibility a smart contract offer. Ain't looking forward to third-party apps even being more powerful, giving routes, places of manufacturing, etc., etc. I'll say right now, like, I don't think this is part of the NDA. There are websites right now that will allow you to do that for things like every single smart gate in the entire cluster right now, because it's all public. Coincidentally, these same technologies allow us to securely, verifiably, and provably enforce strong data guarantees for off-chain operations. This unlocks a pragmatic path towards scaling frontier, off-chain provable execution, which, but when necessary, can transition to a state on-chain. This is all, like, cool. And so many of the... This is another one of my red flags, is that there's so many of these diagrams that look like they're like, yeah, this is true. This looks really smart. Not sure what it has to do with a fucking video game, though. Again, I feel like a lot of this, especially this white paper, is just designed to make crypto bros be like, yes, let's invest in this. This all sounds so cool, but is it going to be fun? I don't know. You can use my code down below and go find out. No. I will say, I don't think this is against NDA. Me and my friends have been having fun with the eFrontiers. So, on the level of, is it fun? We've been having fun with it. Is it going to continue to be fun as we get past the thresholds of development? I don't know. But, yeah. Like, it's not a bad game. Once the world's initial conditions are established in collaboration with the community, players will then become the owners and operators of the world, acting as architects in the reconstruction of the frontier civilization. Our long-term vision is to foster the creation of a truly autonomous world, one owned, operated, and lived in by its inhabitants, self-sustaining and continually evolving. To achieve this ambitious vision, we have experimented with a wide range of cutting-edge technologies to identify the best foundational tools to constructing the frontier. While we have settled on a core technology stack that aligns with our goals, we remain pragmatic in this approach. We will always prioritize the best available solutions and adapt this as technology evolves, rather than being constrained by our initial choices. Above all, our mission is to create a living world that delivers fresh, emergent gameplay experiences which truly belong to the community. The following section outlines the fundamental technologies in the current evolution of thought regarding the technological solutions identified as fit for purpose for rebuilding the cosmos. These technologies form the backbone of the frontier world, selected for their capacity to meet the demands of an ever-evolving virtual environment. They're selling an idea, not a game. I mean, isn't that how all early access games work, though? I mean, Power World is selling you an idea, not a game, at the moment, if you want to think about it that way. There are levels of Power World. There are things in the Power World design documents that do not exist in the game yet. So is Power World not a game? From inception, it has been clear that for players to become deeply invested in a journey of civilizing... Okay, well, as long as we can agree with that, then yeah, I agree with you. That's true about most, if not all, of early access. This requires balancing the two opposing forces. One, a level of certainty and predictability in the persistence of the foundations of the world. For example, the transition from the digital physics of the game to immutable physics of the cosmos. And two, belief in the unconstrained potential and possibility to extend and shape the frontier. For example, the modularity, compostability, and extensibility of smart assemblies. Again, I feel like there's a big concern. Like, am I wrong? This entire document seems to have the underlying idea that this challenge of this fully autonomous virtual world, the fundamental challenge of it is a technical one and not a social one. They seem to assume that with the correct tools, people will play into it, right? But I think that that's going to be the really risky thing, because you can give people the best tools in the world and they still make something shitty out of it. Power was not a game. Proof of claim. No Man's Sky was not a game at launch. Hey, man. Then I agree with you. Well, I mean, I kind of agree with you. I don't know whether or not... There is an argument of, like, what is a complete game? But yes, I agree. With what I understand what you're saying, and you're consistent with your position. Thus, we can quickly recognize that blockchain, public, distributed, and immutable properties perfectly align with our objectives on the e-frontier. Again, like, yeah, it perfectly aligns if those are the two concerns. If the concern is real-life harassment, racism, sexism, stalking, any of that kind of stuff, there is zero protection for that in any of this document that I've seen. Right? That's my problem. That's one of my concerns. Blockchain technology not only ensures the unchanging and transparent foundations of the world, but also fosters an open environment for compostability, allowing continuous iteration and improvement upon what has been built before. More specifically, we ultimately see eFrontier as an Ethereum-based application, leveraging the chain's strong balance between security and decentralization. However, as highlighted by the blockchain trilemma, Ethereum is not yet designed for scale. For context, Ethereum currently handles around 1.3 million transactions per day, barely enough to support EVE Online's market system, which averages 1 million daily transactions, let alone EVE Online's total world state, which processes roughly 1 billion transactions per day. In response to these limitations, we've adopted a pragmatic approach, experimenting with various strategies to build the autonomous world we envision. Initially, we worked with Ethereum's sidechain before developing our own Layer 2 scaling solution on Optimism's OP stack. Looking ahead, our next phase of testing will explore Redstone, another Layer 2 solution built on OP stack to focus on the development of autonomous worlds. We will continue to evolve our blockchain strategy, adapting to the needs of the frontier and its community as the technology progresses and more of the game's fundamental logic is enshrined on-chain. The immutable fact of people online is that they will make it worse over time. Has been distributed. Has that been distributed into their immutable properties? It's a good question, Punch. But I think that there's a certain dark side of this, which is like, Well, maybe like EVE Online is kind of a game about enabling people to be shitty to one another. A central expression of EVE Online's EVE Frontier's ethos, rooted in player autonomy, composability, and extensibility of the game world, is the concept of smart objects. Smart refers to any object that can be connected outside the game via programmable layer, linking the virtual world to EVE Frontier to the material world through blockchain. Smart objects serve as the foundational layer of programmable entities, providing a unified interface that translates to in-game ontology into the on-chain environment. Currently, smart object entities include smart assemblies, which interact directly with the mechanisms of Frontier, and smart characters, which represent on-chain player entities. So you've got smart objects, which include your smart character identity. That's like your character is a singleton on the blockchain, and then on top of that, you can deploy smart assemblies, which include the smart deployables of smart storage, smart turret, and smart gate. Smart assemblies in MUD, the framework for emboldened smart contracts. In the current phase, the most prominent manifestations of smart objects are smart assemblies. Imagine it as enhanced base building, with each structure having programmable layer. In EVE Frontier allows for greater modability and player expression on top of each base item. However, constructing infrastructure and deploying it on the Frontier does not require it to be programmed. Rather, any player should be able to easily manipulate the tools to bring about a common base states. Smart assemblies infrastructure includes storage facilities, trading posts, defenses, and more. For example, a smart storage unit is a structure anchored in space, which acts as a smart storage, holding and dispensing any form of inventory players choose to load it, currencies, items, etc. With smart assemblies, the structure can be coded to serve as a marketplace, a quest giver, a bounty hunter system, an arcade machine, etc. The programmable interface can be coded to be anything that results as an in-game output relevant to each piece of infrastructure. What can player build with smart assemblies? Smart storage unit, a smart assembly construct that is deployed to a fixed location in space, which has an active inventory attached to it. Smart turret, a smart assembly construct that allows for players to build custom logic for targeting systems. And smart gates, a player-built warp gate, which allows for customized gate access logic, and more to come. So, for instance, to deploy a smart gate, you don't actually need to know how to program, but to create the gate access logic, you might need to know how to program and deploy it to the blockchain. Remember when 4chan sent Taylor Swift to the school for the deaf? No. What developers can create and extend from these basic structures is bound solely by their vision, drive, and technological knowledge. MUD enabled. Smart assemblies are brought to life with MUD, which is a smart contract development framework specifically specialized in developing autonomous worlds on any lattice-developed Ethereum-based blockchain. Notably, MUD is purpose-built for the game like EVE Frontier, since 1, it separates save state and logic. 2, it comes with an automatic indexers for applications designed to use MUD. And 3, it includes MUD World, a new network where anyone can deploy state and logic, enabling smart assemblies to be deployed instantly and permissionlessly. I don't actually understand MUD too well yet. That's one of the things that I have barely began to get my brain around. The programmable interface of in-game infrastructure is manipulated through coding, specifically open source Solidity programming language. Using Solidity, players can code functionality through smart contracts on chain code and connect infrastructure to decentralized applications, DApps. Players can modify our infrastructure functions and the way it behaves in this way, powering the economy. Even more frustrating to use version of From the Depths. Oh man, From the Depths. I think... Have I seen that game yet? No. Don't know. Never heard of it. Blockchain technology in the frontier will extend beyond the physical cosmos, where the immutable laws of digital physics govern the universe. Elements that lie outside of those laws, such as key aspects of the economy, social structure, and political organizations, will also be built on immutable and transparent primitives. In these areas, blockchain will provide a direct connection to the real-world value, ensuring trust and permanence. eFrontier follows widely accepted blockchain token standards on the Ethereum network, such as ERC20 and ERC721, ensuring both compatibility and interoperability. Oh man, I know what the word is, but I don't know how to pronounce it off the top of my head. Interoperability. There we go. With the broader blockchain ecosystem. ER20 tokens are used as fungible assets like the EVE token and Tribe Syndicate tokens. In contrast, ERC721 power singletons, unique digital assets such as characters, avatars, ships, and other in-game entities. While operating inside of the game client, virtual currencies and singletons follow a slightly different standard to interact with any game object rather than blockchain address. As a result, they're not technically ERC20 or ERC721, but they are functionally identical and can port over to these standards with a single transaction. In leveraging these standards, eFrontier not only ensures ease of integration with other dApps and platforms, but also fosters a thriving marketplace of third-party developers, many of whom may be well-versed in Solidity and the Ethereum blockchain. It is Lego ships, but you need to know how to build an internal combustion engine from rocks to power your boat. I mean, like, optimally, it does sound like that, but, like, you design your combustion engine, and based on what you put into the combustion engine, that automatically determines its cost to build, material requirement, and whatnot, which sounds cool. Account abstraction. To enhance user experience and security, eFrontier incorporates account abstraction through the eVault, a non-custodial eFrontier-centered crypto wallet, inventory management tool, and mobile companion application, a paradigm that decouples the complexity of interacting with blockchain accounts from the end user. This allows for more flexible and user-friendly account management, where users can perform actions such as batching transactions, automating certain tasks, and even recovering accounts through social recovery mechanisms without compromising security. This approach is crucial for cultivating a strong developer-player community. By making experiences straightforward, comprehensive, and integrated within the client, it'll not only enhance immersion with the frontier, but also encourage the creation of more and higher quality player-generated content. Account abstraction also opens up the possibility for innovative contracts design where the logic for transaction validation and execution may be embedded directly into the account, enabling a more seamless and intuitive interaction with the blockchain. I don't understand any of that. I don't understand any of that. Yeah, I don't understand any. I mean, like, I get that you've got a wallet. I don't understand how any of that has to do with account abstraction. I will admit that, like, blockchain is not my strongest suit, so if anybody wants to correct me on anything or feed me some extra information, that'd be great. Anybody who ever wants to come on the show and we can chat about this, that'd be awesome too. Privacy preserving decentralization. Yeah, exactly. I don't understand. I'm doing my best, guys. I'm doing my best to try to interpret what is here. But, you know, I've got a lot of software development experience. I've got no blockchain development experience. So we're working through this, okay? The thing I'm worried about is how people will use those tools to damage other people's PCs, hacking, spamming, etc., especially people running older PCs. I mean, it might be a thing, but I don't think it's a thing. Like, there might be weird hacks, especially with the HTML5 layer of the smart assemblies. But, like, given the fact that it's Solidity code and it's basically working with an API, you're kind of constrained to working within the rules. Like, there might be, like, weird attack vectors that could be made. But, yeah. I mean, bad behavior is going to be a big problem regardless. Blockchain viruses are a thing. That's true. But, again, like, those are more open-ended than what the rules as are in eFrontier, so it may be more resistant to it. It is really easy to strip somebody's... I understand that. And it might be able to be done. My point is that, like, look, I can code something, I can code a virus in Java that will screw your computer over. That doesn't mean I can write it in Android, even though I write Android applications in Java, because Android itself is sandboxed and its own API system, means that, like, I'm basically using the tools that are already there. So that while I can do bad things on Android, I'm not saying that you can't do bad things on Android. You can't do the same kind of bad things on Android than you could if you were running, say, a native Java client, which is even less than what you could do if you're running, say, a native C++ client, right? Because that's going to be closer to the machine. So I'm not 100% sure. I think it might be abstracted enough that there's not an over concern of that. That said, the social engineering concern with all of this You know, if you're going to allow markets, then are you going to allow scams? Of course you are. You're going to allow any interactions between players. So it could be that, like, it's not even a virus. It's just actually a scam inside of the game, and it's totally fucking legit. Through the use of two primary technologies, specifically zero-knowledge protocols and cryptographic data encapsulation, eFrontier will be able to achieve scalable and fully decentralized virtual world that allows players to choose when and whom to reveal their game activity. ZKP enables a full tapestry of private data use cases, which, in conjunction with the digital primitives for locality, observational range, and rules, provide a rich canvas for gameplay, all verifiable and provable on blockchain. Plan on attack and move forces in secret. Hold hard-earned assets in private vaults, engage in syndicate espionage and counter-espionage, waylay shipping lanes in the far reaches of space whilst remaining hidden, strategically place observation structures to mine tradable, valuable data. And again, like, how do you do that in a practical way on a public ledger? And then on, even if you do that, does this amount of security or secrecy allow scams to happen, right? If I can conceal something, can I claim to be doing one thing when it's really doing another thing, right? That's going to be a big concern. Me taking somebody to IRL court for gambling law violations when I lose my HyperNet relay for an Avatar Titan. Yeah. ZKP enables all this activity to occur on the client side of the architecture. Due to this technology, all actions are verifiable on-chain with a full record of proof without needing to put large amounts of data fully on-chain. eFrontier's digital physics and game rules enforcement can be handled through accounting transactions that can be a record of sequence of events without detailing the specifics of those events. That just sounds to me like you could have a hack client that could do things that are against the rules, potentially. Because if it's client validated, that's not great. This approach minimizes the reliance on centralized infrastructure such as game servers and shifts much of the responsibility for game execution and the coordination between player clients, enabling decentralized through coordinated protocols. Yeah, it sounds like what I was talking about earlier, where like the sleepers run their client on each individual person. So it's like, as you're connected, your client is part of the processing and talking to other clients directly. That sounds dangerous as hell. I don't know if I like that at all. Yeah, if it's client authoritative, even worse, if it's client communicative, that could be extraordinarily dangerous. The world of eFrontier will be powered by the Carbon development platform. As mentioned in the governance section, CDP will be completely oversourced over time. This adds a supercharged layer of programmability atop of the core game client, extending the composability of the frontier even further than smart objects do. In an interview with the recently conducted around CCP's games to open source Carbon, blah. Yeah, okay. I'm not saying that this is all true. Like that. Here's the thing. A lot of this stuff is what they dream about in the future. There's a reasonable chance that they're going to shoot for the moon and hit somewhere short of that, right? Like, who knows where this is going to go in the long run? They're just stating where they want it to go. And this sounds incredibly idyllic to me. Servers were hosted in individual per computer, so players were able to perform remote code execution on players' desktop. That's terrifying. Especially when you deal with crypto wallets. That's terrifying. Oh, all right. Let's just be fun. Our vision of player-driven worlds where power, development, and management are in the hands of players, making them true architects of the game evolution. Our ambition is for eFrontier to be a thriving, self-sufficient ecosystem driven entirely by players. The frontier is yours. To achieve this, CCP will ensure that all initial conditions of the frontier are properly set and balanced as needed with the express goal of moving forward to a sustainable long-term future that is completely player-run and the world is autonomous. This ethos is core to Frontier experience and fundamentally built into every design decision we have made to bring this game to life. Shaping the world in client. From the very beginning of this game, players are tasked with rebuilding the world from the ground up. This happens in client with features like reconstructing the Stargate network of the galaxy, building out supporting infrastructure, developing and customizing new ships, creating new social structures, and more. All decisions matter and impact the canvas of the game. Over time, the entire canvas of the game will be colored entirely by player actions and decisions. Expanding the frontier via third-party development. While the world of Frontier features deep avenues of creation in client, we hope to expand this aperture of player agency even further to be unconstrained by the initial conditions, systems, and features that we are set forth. To that end, we dream of an Frontier is a world that can flexibly expand and customize through third-party development, unlocking boundless creativity. This ethos has been built into the core experience from the outset. Experience by the commitment to open sourcing the code that is needed to make and operate eFrontier. By doing so, we catalyze development efforts from anyone wanting to contribute to eFrontier's ecosystem. To support this, we are introducing Smart Assemblies, a construct that integrates full server-side modification capabilities through blockchain-enabled smart contracts. Players will be able to bring their smart contracts to life with custom user interfaces, all rendered in HTML5 and accessible within the game client. This ensures seamless integration with the world, allowing for deeper customization and creativity while interacting with third-party applications created by other players. In addition, advancing cryptographic technology seamlessly pass data into secure and verifiable manner between the client and on-chain environments with Frontier towards full decentralization. All this will be enabled through eFrontier technology stack, which is an underlying blockchain, which will serve as a gateway to enable players to manifest and showcase their creativity. Again, like I want to like this game. I think it's going to be fine. If anybody wants to correct me, that's fine. I read this and I'm just like, what's going to stop somebody from doing something truly terrible in this system, right? If I can make a smart assembly that has an HTML5 interface, will somebody store illegal stuff like CP or terrible shit on these smart assemblies? Will that become CCP's problem? That's gross. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with it. Let's hope there's some sort of protection for that. Want to get that smart gate working? Near this totally safe code I wrote to make gates work. Just copy and paste it into your client and hit run as administrator when the box burns up. All right. The world of eFrontier will be fully moddable and open source, decentralizing its infrastructure to eliminate reliance on any centralized authority by open sourcing Frontier's codebase, including the front and end gameplay client, as well as the full CDP game engine. We seek to ensure the ecosystem's trust, longevity, and innovation for third-party development. Both the gameplay client and CCP Carbon development platform will be fully accessible, granting players unprecedented access to the core primitives of the game and the codebase itself. In alignment with our core principles, governance of the Frontier will be shaped by multiple entities, each designed to offer distinct modes and checks and balances. This structure mirrors the separation of powers found in the institutions like judicial and legislative branches or the House of Commons and Senate. These representative bodies will deliberate on specific sets of issues unique membership, yet with some minimal overlap to ensure coherence. Wait, what? Hold on. Governance within the Frontier will be shaped by multiple entities, each designed to offer so what, like a CSM that runs things? I don't, what? The primary aim of this governance model is to give voice to all key stakeholders within the Frontier ecosystem. Oh my God, that actually scares me too. We already have enough problems with the CSM doing shit, and they don't even have real power. This includes players, developers, EVE token holders, and contributors of the eFrontier. Oh, what a nightmare. There's already people that are like, I pay my $20 a month. I deserve, I pay your salary, blah, blah, blah. Now people are going to be like, I have all of the EVE tokens. I demand to control the game to be the way I want it to be. Ensuring their diverse perspectives are well represented in the decision-making processes. But maybe they shouldn't be. The Frontier's governance model will oversee setting the agenda, resolving disputes, and making decisions on many critical aspects of the ecosystem, including but not limited to decentralization, facilitating full community stewardship of the Frontier, development and maintenance of the Frontier, coordinating and administrating upgrades to decentralized elements of the Frontier in accordance with the community's needs, such as bug fixes and feature additions, governance facilitation, establishing governance structures and processes, including voting mechanisms, stakeholder agreements, engagements, and delegation systems, funding and resource allocations, administering the EVE token treasury, including grants and token liquidity, supporting with strategic partnerships and collaborators and managing developer relations, security and risk management, monitoring network security, conducting regular audits and running security assessments, and transparency and accountability reporting, the Frontier governing bodies, activities and plans, and engaging the wider community in transparent and consistent manner. The thing that I have a concern with that is like, Who's going to be motivated to take on this power for a video game? The people that are going to abuse that power, right? Like, oh, well, we'll see. We'll see. But that is... The game was New World? Oh, God. Hearing about a bug in a recent MMO that was client authoritative where you dragged the window around, you were invincible. Yes, that was New World. New World had some problems. Players usually know what they want, but they don't know what they need. Well, yeah, because like the conflict between what you want and what it takes to get it is where the game is. That's the game. If you just wanted it and then had it, you would just have a thing. There wouldn't be a game there. So the most fundamental like game design concept, we go back to Super Mario Brothers, okay? Most of you have probably played Super Mario Brothers. At the very beginning of the game, you've got, the first Goomba and the mushroom. Then you've got a pipe. Then you've got another Goomba between the pipes. And then there's another pipe. And then there's a block and a pit. And it's designed so that when you hit the block, especially if you hit the block on the near side, which is like where you're coming from, the one-up comes and then immediately starts heading over towards the pit. This creates a conflict within the player, right? There's a conflict of your interest. Not a conflict of interest, but there's a decision that must be made. Your desire for safety is in conflict with your desire for the one-up. If you go after the one-up, you increase your risk of accidentally falling into the pit. That fundamental decision is like the underpinning of almost all video games, Sid Meier's Civilization, video games are just a series of interesting decisions. It'll seem like this will be a who knows the best way to exploit the code and drain people's wallet simulator. Hopefully not. I mean, there's a really good chance that all of these concerns that I'm bringing up are naive, nearsighted, I don't understand crypto, right? But the reason why I'm bringing these up is because these are the things that the community needs to know about. Like, I know a thing or two about software development, and I just read through it, and I gave you my best opinions about it. Now, maybe somebody who knows about crypto would have a different opinion about it, but maybe somebody who's drank the Kool-Aid would have a better opinion about it. But I guess for CCP, what I could say is these are the questions and concerns that actually need to be addressed. You want people to pay $40 to $90 or whatever to play your game? You want people to buy into this? This is the kind of thing that we need to know and understand. Like, is this going to just become a garish mess of hacking and bad stuff? Is this going to be a place for Nazis and criminals? What is going to prevent the worst case scenario from happening? Because that doesn't seem to be addressed here yet. But that being said, fundamentally what they're doing is something incredibly interesting, right? The idea of having something be on a public ledger with an open source client means that it is something that can, like, we have been trying to make these virtual worlds throughout the last couple of decades, and this does feel like it is trying to be the next step in that evolution, and they seem to have an idea of how they're going to get there. They understand what was wrong before and what they can do to make it better. So I'm personally not willing to just scoff at this yet. I am very interested in what they have to do from both like a game like as a game player, like this sounds like an interesting game to play, but also from just a guy who pays attention to technology. Blockchain is this really interesting technology, cryptographic technology that has been really trying to find a value in the market since its inception, right? Everything from Bitcoin to NFTs, these are just ways to try to monetize the nature of the blockchain. And I feel like this could be one of the very first practical uses of a blockchain that I have seen. So I'm excited by that notion. This represents a huge step forward in how we understand what we can get out of blockchains. This is no longer, hey, look, I put a cool URL in this particular block. Don't you want to buy it for way more than I spent for it? That's not the point of this anymore. This is about having a public ledger database for a publicly owned space, right? And I think that that has a lot of potential if these concerns can be addressed. Again, very, very concerned about that. Very concerned about that. Very, very, very concerned about that. It's the illegal stuff. It's the corrupting stuff. That's the stuff I'm most concerned about. When you start talking about player freedom, I mean, there's already a lot of that. Like, I'll just say it. There's a lot of fucking Nazis running around in EVE Online and using the freedom of EVE Online social space to promote a very shitty mentality and project that shittiness onto other people in a at least in universe violent way. So that is definitely the downside to this kind of thing. You know, there's the question of whether or not the technology can hold up, but then there's the question of whether or not we as a people can actually use this technology to make something good, or if we're just going to make something that's a cesspool. Blockchain basically just means one thing after another on a technological record rather than trusting a human to tell you a record of something. I mean, that is a component of it for sure, but it's also the method in which those blocks are made and validated and et cetera, et cetera. Like there is, but yes, yeah. It's a way to allow multiple entities to maintain a single ledger and validate transactions that are correct versus incorrect. That's all it is. Players will optimize the fun out of anything, especially when it comes to things that even tangentially link to IRL money. You're right, which is why they're going to have to make it so that it's fun, even if people are trying to optimize it for IRL money. So yeah, what do you guys think? Is this going to be the next big thing? Is this the solution to player-created spaces? Or is this just a complete nothing burger? One thing I do, like, the biggest thing about this is there's so much of this that feels like CCP has come to their limit of what they can do to EVE Online. EVE Online players have been playing EVE Online for 20 years. So everything that CCP tries to do to EVE Online is seen as a change, right? Like if they tried to take local away from nullsec, people would reject it because it's a change. There's so many things. There's all of these little changes that CCP has built up over the years of things that they would love to do, but either because of technical debt or social inertia, CCP can't do it to EVE Online. They've tried to do some of these things to EVE Online, and they've been woefully rejected. So there's a concern that I have that CCP have their eyes on this prize because they see it as their solution to the problems that they have with EVE Online and managing EVE Online. Whether or not that's actually going to provide real solutions. So, but it's just going to be something that we're going to have to keep paying attention to. Thank you guys so much for coming with me on this journey to explore the white paper. Obviously, again, I don't understand all this stuff. Please, if you have corrections or a better understanding of what's going on, make sure to put comments down below or hit me up in Discord and we can arrange to have like an interview or something. If you understand blockchain or if you're from CCP, you want to talk about this, I'd love to sit down and talk to you. But for today, I think that about covers it. So I've been Ashtarothi. I've been playing this game since 2010. Not this game, the EVE Online game. Talking about it since 2012, and I'm here to put EVE into context for you, my fellow Empyreans. Thank you guys so much for coming. I will see you next week, and until next time, I'll see you in space. Like, comment, subscribe, buy merch, etc.
Bring on the wrecking machine. every city